ladies, gentlemen, NBs, welcome to Warui Deshou. We've moved away from brand new animal and we're on to something else, something a bit different, something really, really stupid. But I'll tell you up front, if you want to get out quick because you've left the oven on or something, I quite like this show. I'm of course talking about Akudama Drive, which is our new stream of thought show for this season to see out 2020, and we're going to be talking about episodes 1 to 3 today. But of course, I'm not going to be doing this solo. I have actually returned from Excel Hell, but obviously, two's need to have a pair for this. So join me as always from across the pond, but close by is the Soul Doctor.
Hello, friends. What is up, everybody? I hope you are all doing well and as safe and healthy as possible. Welcome back, Shadon. We missed you very much. I was very sad, to not have you and your insights on the last 4 episodes of Rakugo, because those were some goddamn good episodes of anime. And I was sad. I was sad independently of that you were in spreadsheet hell. I know that's a difficult place.
It was a whole new layer of spreadsheet hell. So I can't give too much context to the wider public as to what I've been up to. I promise you it is not Cayman Island tax returns. That's not what I've been doing. And I can also simply promise you that I am not the person responsible for the UK's test and trace bullshit. In case you don't know what that is, it's someone fundamentally misunderstanding how Excel works, or the fact that they're even using it in the first place was something like, I don't know, the coronavirus response. Dipshits. No, but I have been involved in something quite important, and it's been taking up upwards of 12 hours work per day, which I normally don't do. I normally do your usual 8-hour shift with a lunch. I promise you, though, would-be listeners, that this is temporary, because it's one of those things where you just have to chip away at these tasks. We had a big project, and we're now doing the aftercare process of it. So all of the aftercare tasks that are involved in this are quite lengthy, quite involved, but once they're done, they're done. They don't come back. One and done kind of thing. Just like my last relationship.
Hey.
Sorry. Couldn't resist the bad joke there. But yeah, I am very, very glad to be back. I'm very glad to be able to have a good bit of banter, have a cheeky beer on stream, because why not? And especially about this show, because this show I think is the perfect thing for the mood I'm in right now. That's not to say I obviously don't like talking about big thinky shows, ones with deep meaning, deep themes, where we can draw out a lot of interpretation from it. We can talk about the artistic value of it and such like that. And I should stress, by the way, when I get to talk about Akudama Drive, it's a dumb as rocks show. It's it's
in a manner of speaking, right?
Yeah, it literally. But that does not mean it's not been smartly made, and that's something I'll be discussing later. Because let's be honest, I think there's something one of our patrons mentioned to me, which I found really interesting, is that not everyone comes to anime as a wide genre for the same reasons. I come to it because, generally speaking, I find a lot of anime to be quite, something I can get really invested into. I can start looking at all the drama involved in it, and also because it serves a nice function of generally being very seasonal. Whereas a lot of live action television for me is just constantly going on and on and on and on. And you get Game of Thrones season 8, and you look back and you think to yourself, "Wow, wasted my time, didn't I?" Whoops.
Yeah.
The bells, the fucking bells.
I do.
Jesus Christ.
I do like that about anime as well. Endings are good. And
yes.
Not, as you say, not just fucking spinning your wheels for ages and ages. But okay. Got a few things to address from the chat before we continue. Number one, the song that was playing that Go-Go Atomic Robot referred to as, quote, a banger, in case anyone wants to know, is Shirueto, and it's called Love Me, Love Me. You can just find it on SoundCloud if you search for that of Shirueto or Love Me, Love Me. I've also put it in our Discord music doohickey. I put a lot of SoundCloud stuff in there, and most of it will probably be showing up on the standby page now. And also Catherine mentioned that the switch from music to our stream was a little bit abrupt. I don't know. I mean, I'll look into it. I don't know if there's anything that I can do about slowly fading it kind of automatically. I guess I'd have to do it by hand, which I'm not necessarily opposed to doing, but it just wouldn't really be smooth that way as I slowly drag the slider bar across. Oh no, I've done it too much. I've done it too much there.
Doc, you know what we need to do? We of course had Mark on last week for Show Again Roko Rako Shinjo. We need to bring him back to be our audio engineer.
Oh my god, I know.
He could be the Domeki of our Aizoken, if you want to call it that. And Jesus Christ, say that out loud made me feel like a dork, but here we are.
He could.
You
he
all
could,
know what I meant.
He could spin the wax and do the standby music and fade it.
Crossfade, you know?
Indeed. And if anyone knows how to fucking crossfade and OBS between scenes, that would be awesome. But I don't know how to do it. So maybe that technology exists. But as Hacker said to Ordinary Person, this ain't magic. I don't know exactly how to make it happen yet.
Can I get this out of the way right now?
Mm-hmm.
I am absolutely fuming that they did not call him Hackerman.
Hackerman. Why did you want him to be called Hackerman?
It's because of the meme, the Hackerman meme.
I don't know this.
You've
meme.
not seen that?
I know.
Oh my god.
The first thing I thought of was that he was an unsilent hacker. That's where my mind went. To Delta.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I'll give you that. But like, Doc, sometimes like I know that I think you're somewhat like just slightly older than me.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think that you're a lot older than me as well. If you know what I mean. Christ on a bike.
Is there a web page that you all go to see the hot new memes, or are you just online all the time, and they just hit you?
Down with the kids that are of our age, as it turns out.
Where do the youths go to collect their meme tech?
Well, in my recent history, it's been Microsoft Teams at work.
The place to get all the hip new lingo and such. Was there another thing that once? We've also flipped. I've also ended up flipping our images in chat, so you're now to the left of me instead of to the right.
And here I am stuck in the middle of you.
Bingo.
Can I point out how perfect a reference that is? And no doubt if you're catching this later on MP3 format, you might think yourself, wait, that sounds familiar. Because one of the episodes that we're covering today is named Reservoir Dogs.
Hey, that's right.
And of course, there is the Stealing Wheeling, Stuck in the Middle of You song there.
Right.
So,
yes.
You set me up perfectly, Doc. You didn't even realize it. Thank you.
You know, some of these characters would fit in that film, I have to say. They're quite a collection of psychopaths. Some of these guys.
Mr. Cutthroat is obviously Mr. Red.
Of course, naturally. And, yeah. I don't know where to take that joke from here, but he's definitely Mr. Red. Annoyingly might I add. Just...
Yeah, I'm very sad that there wasn't an opening scene of two people talking in a diner, about the exploitation of capitalism before deciding to rob the place. But maybe we can't copy Tarantino entirely.
Well, we can't fucking. That's right. They did do that with the tips, and it was. You don't want to copy that because then you might end up looking like Crash, which did like a very poor imitation of that with Ludacris and his friend talking about systemic racism right before they jack a car.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. It was that fucking movie. God.
Well, at least there's an actor inside of it whose moniker or nom de jour perfectly sums up the audience reaction to it as well. So there you are. Ludicrous.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yes. That movie, Luda was too good for that movie. I'll just say it.
What?
The weirdest fucking Oscar selection of all time.
That's
recent history.
That says a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So moving away from Crash, which I've never seen, but I have it on good authority that it is rancid dog shit.
Yeah, you're good. You made a good.
Yeah,
choice.
I'm good for that. keep that stuff away, would you please? Let's move back to Akudama Drive. So we're going to go through a quick plot summary fairly soon, and then we get into talking points. I will point out ahead of time, though, that our talking points are probably going to be very different than what you're used to. I mean, if you want to take the last show we covered on Stream of Thought, which was Brand New Animal, and, okay, look, I didn't like Brand New Animal at all. I thought it was also rancid dog shit, funnily enough. It was the Crash of anime.
Oh, my God. That's, wow.
I'll let
I
you
mean,
simmer in that for a second while I continue, because you need a moment for that one. I'm going to let you have your moment, Doc.
I mean, I don't know if I can object. I want to, but I just don't know if I can, right? I mean, it's a
Really,
poor use of
you are lost in the labyrinth of your own mind there, trying to escape, trying to say, actually, no, Shads, I don't agree
But I
with you this
can't.
time.
No, I mean, I can't say that you're wrong because
Whoa.
as much as
It's good to be back.
I enjoyed parts of that show, but I mean, just thinking about the how thinking about maybe how the creative team didn't think about the implications of what they were doing is a little bit.
Can I stop you there? When you said the creative team didn't think, I was just hoping you would just pause and just let it go. And that was it. I was thinking about the creative team just didn't think.
Yeah.
Done. Anyway, when we talked about Brand New Animal last time, though, we obviously went into quite a lot of detail about the politics of the show, both over and covert, tacit and otherwise. Whether we agreed with them or disagreed, we certainly drew those kind of things out. And there was character stuff in there as well. You're not going to find a lot of in-depth discussion about either character or politics in Akudama Drive right now, at least as we see it. With the fact, though, that there are things there to pluck at, certainly. But we're talking like the popcorn chicken versus the full-blown, wing that is what you get elsewhere. Like, it's just little nuggets of stuff.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to try and do this time is, I think what we often don't necessarily talk about a lot on Warui Deshou is, why does the show work? Because I think the interpretation and criticism of a show can often be, hey, I like this meaning, behind this character.
Yeah.
I like the meaning behind this scene. I like how it's paneled and such. So we do cover it sometimes. I'll give ourselves that much credit. But I think that sometimes we also might want to peel back away from just going deep into the character depths of, and such like that, and just say, how do you structure a story like this? How do you structure a story that is ostensibly more pulp entertainment than a big, piece to get your brain matter chewing on, to get yourself cogitating about? Because that's what Akudama Drive is.
Yeah,
but I think we did.
Just to add that, to add on to that, and maybe we'll supplement kind of the approach you're taking. I am, of the two of us, I am familiar with one of the series head writer is, not to jump ahead into creatives, but I'll just jump ahead into creatives because that's what we're going to do next anyway. The series composition credit is Norimitsu Kaiho, who is incredibly well-known here and everywhere, I think, for penning the Danganronpa video game series.
That's right.
And so there are, I think, so I will, I guess, be able to talk about this work in relationship to those works. Now, disclaimer, I have not played all 4 of the Danganronpa video games.
Not one of them.
I've played 1 to completion, and I've played about 3/4 of 2, and I am still chipping away at Danganronpa 2.
All I know is that it features Teddy Alter, as in Monokuma.
Right. Yes.
And that's it. I'm getting my obligatory half-assed Danganronpa is really Persona joke out of the way, but I don't really mean it, of course. Please don't stab me in the eye socket, or eye sockets, Danganronpa fans. But I do know that at least it's a very well respected game in its own right and series. But otherwise, my knowledge of it is pretty bare bones.
And it is, like you said, it's pretty pulpy, but some interesting things happen. And aside from the roller coaster and the murder and the death and the betrayal and the evil mascots and what have you, and we can.
Monokuma's pretty sus.
Monokuma is extremely sus, although actually not as sus as half the cast in that game because he. Well, I don't know if I want to spoil this now. I'll just say he barely kills anyone. Barely kills anyone.
Did you? He barely killed.
Yep.
We're doing that shit again. Right, that's it. We need to have a bingo card every time we do a podcast where we strike it off if something happens. Like we make a bear pun. Shads calls something a bag of wank. You know, we need to have our greatest hits on this bingo card.
Yes.
I mean, I'll let people in chat decide what the free space would be, but we do need that at this point. But I
Oh,
will
but-
just add to what you're saying there about Danganronpa, though,
Oh.
very briefly, is that even though I have very little knowledge of the game itself, I of course have seen what it looks like, what the characters look like, even though I can't name any of them. And if you know anything about the game, the art style of the character design for
Totally.
Akudama Drive is immediately recognizable as being pretty much in parity. Like, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And it looks great.
The character design is the same. The character design, of course, is oh gosh, this is going to be one for me to read because I haven't practiced beforehand. Rui, we got the first name, but the family name, Komatsuzaki, Danganronpa. I believe this person is also the Danganronpa character design. So that's obvious. There's also a lot of other visual stuff and directorial stuff in addition to the plot stuff those games, if you know it, for those of you who have played them, will know that it's not just kind of the similar setup and plot, but there's a lot of aesthetic touches that those games all have in common and are shared by Akudama Drive, and we'll talk about that. I think that's interesting to go into. And I should explain what Danganronpa is. I probably everyone knows, but just in case, I mean, there may be someone who's not familiar. So it's the series of video games, visual novels, most of them. There is a one called Ultra Despair Girls that is like a third-person shooter set in the Danganronpa universe.
Ultra Despair Girls, that's my favorite rock metal band.
Yeah.
Woo!
But Danganronpa 1, 2, and 3 are these visual novel murder mysteries that are part, again, VN and part, like, I guess almost Phoenix Wright style, like courtroom deal where, like, you're supposed to solve a murder that has happened by one of your classmates to another of your classmates for reasons that would take too long to go into. If you've seen Akudama Drive, there's a similar deal where you have one kind of mysterious figure who sets up an elaborate game. In this case, it's a murder game in high school. But anyway, the main character, are tasked with like figuring out who done it, and you're arguing with people, making objections. You see people's arguments as sentences floating in the sky, and you like cut them with a sword and shit like that. It's great. So that's what those are.
So let me get it straight then. Basically, Danganronpa is ultra-violent anime Scooby-Doo.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, Scooby-Doo had so little animation, so anyway, it technically counts as a visual novel, so there you are.
Jeez. I did, fucking drive-by on Hanna-Barbera and Scoob here. Jesus, was not expecting
They were the penny-pinching cheapskates that they were. I think more of their cartoons are garbage than not, but, well, that's not the last time I'll be discussing a Hanna-Barbera cartoon this weekend, but that's a Final Fantasy reference for you.
Okay, there's a
Believe it or
tease.
not.
That's a tease. But,
yeah, that's a tease.
So we'll just briefly, like, I got a couple more creatives I want to talk about really quickly. This will be the most creative-heavy week because we're talking about the main kind of overseer kind of creatives.
I actually got some stuff to say about the creatives as well, because I'll tell you this. The seiyus, the voice actors and actresses, are stacked for this show.
Oh, well, I'll let you talk about them when I'm finished talking about
fun shit.
The directors and writers. So, series director is a person called Tomohisa Taguchi, and Taguchi-san looks like they are mostly experienced with directing the Persona anime adaptations. Directed 3 of the 4 Persona 3 films. Storyboarded the first one, was the director on 2 and 4, and worked in a different capacity on 3, but heavily involved. Was the director for Persona 4 The Golden TV animation, and did episode directing and storyboarding for several episodes, and the OP in the original Persona 4 vanilla TV animation.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, like, you know, some credits here and there, like directed this sort of, again, I'm going to use a crude phraseology here, B tier in terms of popularity, not of quality, but B tier shonen anime called Twin Star Exorcists. You know, it's not on your My Hero Academia, Dragon Ball, like super phenomenon levels, but Twin Star Exorcist it got a long running TV adaptation. I think the manga might still be going, and it has its ardent fan base for sure. And any other director experience? I don't. A Digimon movie and the new Kino's Journey TV adaptation that people didn't really like very much. So that's Taguchi. And we talked about Kaiho, the writer. So now we'll talk about the assistant director who was actually one of the writers of episode the director, I should say, of episode 2, Reservoir Dogs. Episode 1 was written and directed by Taguchi and Kaiho. They have worked on all the episodes in a writing capacity, but you have this person called Yoshifumi Sasahara, who is the credited on ANN as the assistant director, credited on Wikipedia as the director of episode 2 again, and a screenwriter for episode 2. They look like that they are a veteran, like they've only really done episode direction. So they're staying in their lane here. A little bit of storyboarding. Got some episode direction for Baka and Tess, for Kino's Journey, the new one. So there's some linkage there. My Hero Academia TV, some early episodes of that, and also Persona 3 movie experience. Oh, Shinometa. Directed a few episodes of Shinometa, your favorite anime comedy.
Hey, I never said I didn't like Shinometa. I think it's
great. I know. I like bringing it up. So that's
well, when it comes to Shinometa, Shinometa likes bringing it up too.
Yes, exactly. It likes to bring it up. The episode 3, Mission Impossible. Also, episode 1, we didn't say the title is 7. So all these American film titles. Episode 4, by the way, is going to be called Speed.
Oh God!
And you could clearly say
hard guess. Because I'm thinking to myself, like, what happened in Speed apart from the bus, obviously?
Sure.
You know, of which we actually had a bus already in these episodes. So I'm not bringing that back. By the way, the whole like film naming convention, I'm going to bring that up as a talking point later. But I see stuff like what happens in Speed, and one of the other things I remember is that I think Keanu Reeves' partner, whose name I can't remember, they have a discussion afterwards, like when they solve the first problem, and he's like, you know, always shoot the hostage whenever they're held, held at gunpoint. So I'm looking forward to that happening, where someone will get held hostage, and then Courier, because he's the one with the gun, he's gonna be like, hey, bang. Wait, why'd you shoot them? Because it distracts you. That's why. Calling it now.
I've never seen Speed. Shocking, I know, to everyone involved.
I haven't seen it in years. I've got nothing much more to add to it. It's a fine action film.
Of the movie episode titles, though, this is to my great credit. I'm going to crow about this. I've seen all of them until Speed. I've seen 7, where the 7 replaces the V. Seven. I've seen Reservoir Dogs many times, and I've seen Mission Impossible many times, the first one. I've not seen the entire franchise or anything like that.
I think you and me are on par then so far. Like, sometimes, like, historically, we've been, like, I've been like, hey, Doc, do you remember this film? And you just look at me like I've just started speaking a different language. But I've actually not seen 7, but I have seen the others. So Reservoir Dogs, Mission Impossible, and, of course, Speed. So, there you go.
It's been a long time since I've seen 7. The most I could probably say is I thought 7 was all right.
Has it been 7 years?
It's been longer than it's been a multiple of 7 years, perhaps.
Oh no!
So episode 3, Mission Impossible, directed by Hikaru Murata, another person who looks like the majority of their CV is episode direction. We got some Puzzle and Dragons X new game with an exclamation point and episode there. Looks like a lot of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Diamond is Unbreakable and Golden Wind. Several episodes of each season. And a whole bunch of storyboarding and episode direction for the 2018 Captain Tsubasa TV show that will just never, America will never get any Captain Tsubasa stuff released legally because it's got the two fucking strikes working against it. It's a nexus of things that anime fans don't give a shit about. Sports, soccer, not just any sports, right? Wow. But soccer.
Yeah.
And yeah, sports anime. So, and also an old connection to a very old thing. Yeah, it's not, so unfortunately you'd have to track down Captain Tsubasa by other means. And the writers of this episode, Mission Impossible, are it's Taguchi, the director, Sasahara, the assistant director. Interesting, Kaiho, the head writer, is not listed on Wikipedia as one of the writing credits. But the person who did get that writing credit is Ryo Morise. And Morise is an extreme, very tiny CV. I get the feeling that maybe this person works in games, perhaps, because I don't know that for a fact, but half of his 4 credits on ANN are Danganronpa 3 anime credits. And so I'm thinking maybe he got brought over from writing for the games. I'm not sure about that. Also wrote the scripts for several episodes of a show called Gunslinger Stratos, the animation, which I've forgotten exists. I'm sure at one time I knew what it was, but I no longer do. And those are our creatives this week for Akudama Drive, at least in the directing and writing department. Shadon's going to talk about the Seiyu.
I'll just mention as well, how I made that joke before about Danganronpa being Persona, but off-brand. It's like when you watch a mainline, say when you watch Metallica and you're like, nah, Metallica's too mainstream for me. That's like then going for Metallica to something else. It's a bit you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I'm
a Megaton fan. I like the real shit.
Yeah, exactly. But you was then saying, of course, that all of the creatives, or a lot of them, were still involved in Persona anyway, so it just can't escape. You know?
Yeah.
There's a callback.
Sure.
Right. So Seiyu. So first off, Ordinary Person, aka Swindler, is voiced by Tomoyo Kurosawa. Who the hell is that? She's the voice behind Foss from Land of the Lustrous, and also Kumiko from Sound Euphonium.
I knew I recognized her. Wow.
Yeah.
She's back.
Well, we've got to just put out there that unfortunately she was actually recently diagnosed with COVID-19.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
And
no.
I think she's fine now, as I understand it.
Oh my god.
But obviously, with what we're learning about COVID-19 and long COVID, one can only hope that she hasn't suffered any lasting effect from it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so speedy recovery to you, Kurosawa-san. However you pronounce, I don't know. Whatever, you get my point.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck. Cool. Gambari. Done. Right. So next one I want to mention is Cutthroat's voice actor, Takahiro Sakurai. Who the hell is that, you might wonder? Well, you'll like this, Doc. He voiced Reagan in Mob Psycho.
Oh, shit.
Very different role from Cutthroat, because Cutthroat's all like, hey, I like knives. Do you like knives? I like knives. Do you like knives? Knives.
You want to know something?
Red knives.
You want to know something? Something funny. Not pertaining to Cutthroat. This will not be the last time we talk about Reagan Arakawa on this podcast.
Son, damn.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're all up for talking about internet sex symbol Reagan.
I am always.
There we are. But the reason I wanted to actually go on this Seiyu dive, if you want to call it that, was because when I was rewatching the episodes, I thought, why the hell does Cutthroat sound like Haru from Saitama? And I was absolutely convinced it was the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out I was a third correct because Takehiro Sakurai actually does voice a character in Surisama. It's just not Haru. Oh, by the way, for those listening at home, our second stream pod this year will be on Surisama. So get yourself signed up to the $3 tier to check that out.
Hell yeah. I can't wait.
I'm ready to go fishing in that one. So anyway, moving on. Next one is Yuichiro Umahara, who plays Courier, and I'm sure I've heard that name a million times before.
That sounds very familiar.
Yeah, well, he was Goro in Darling in the Franxx. Yay!
the shining light, the real moment where he stepped out of the shadows into the bright lights of fame. Clearly,
poor guy. But then again, I remember there were two save for Goro because the first guy was actually quite unwell at some point.
God, man, there's what a mess in so many ways.
Yeah, he was also the voice behind the titular Goblin Slayer of the Goblin Slayer anime, which I didn't watch because I was like, "Yay, I'm not really up for watching Gratuitous rape scenes. Please no."
Yeah, that's
I will skip that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So that's him, and the next one, the final one I'll mention, is the Doctor.
Okay.
So the Doctor is voiced by Megumi Ogata, and who the hell is that, you might wonder? I think Megumi Ogata is probably one of the most prolific Japanese voice actresses for anime, based just on the length of her resume alone.
Yeah.
But I was browsing through it, and I was like, well, I've got instant respect for her because she voices Haruka from Sailor Moon S, aka Sailor Uranus.
Wow.
Who is just a badass because I recently finished Sailor Moon S, and Haruka is one of my favorite characters in there. But yeah, her career is ridiculous. She's been going for a long time. So yeah, there's quite a decent bit of talent here. I couldn't really find anything of note for the Brawler though, even though I thought that he would have some decent credits behind it. But that's not to say he's bad, of course. Quite the opposite.
You know what's interesting, and I should try to triangulate all of these sometime. But the Doctor, Ogata, was also the voice of the main character in the Danganronpa video game.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, Makoto Negi. That rules. What a cool callback and connection.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've got some stacked voice acting talent here for this show. And that was all just thinking, wait, that guy sounds way too happy for a murderer, but I realized he is a psychopath, of course. So, there you are.
Of course. Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
Get some red crayons, he'll be fine. They'll keep him occupied.
Also, talk about prestigious roles. Fucking holy hell, man. Ogata, that's Shinji Ikari, man.
Damn, I didn't even realize.
Yeah, that's fucking Shinji Ikari.
I think I couldn't associate someone who was as badass as Haruka in Sailor Moon S with someone from around the same point who was such a twerp as Shinji.
I mean,
I know I'm being.
He's a twerp, but he's the twerp.
That's not a compliment.
It is but it really is.
he's the twerp.
He is all of us.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Also, Kurama. That's God. She's fantastic. What a great kind of CV with different sorts of roles. And it's been going for 20 years.
I know. You know what I need to do now? I need to put a tweet out after this is done, which is same voice actress, and just put Shinji and the Doctor in the same tweet.
You should, definitely should.
Because that's insane.
Yeah. You know what's also interesting? So I only looked into this CV because I recognized the name, Maya Uchida, the Black Cat. That's Norman from The Promised Neverland.
Yeah. God, they're all in on this one, aren't they?
Yeah, it's true.
It's great.
Yeah. They did such a good job. I mean, it's quite a collection of talent that we have here. So yeah, good stuff. Excellent stuff. So is it now time for patron questions?
So a quick 2-minute summary though. You're gonna have to time me on this.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm gonna pull up time.is, and this is appropriate that we're doing this now for the first episode. In case anyone's jumping in, hasn't watched it. What? I respect if you just come to this podcast for us to hear us talk about things and don't necessarily watch the anime. So, but not the way I would recommend to go. But you do you, guys. It's totally fine. Shadon is going to give a 2-minute summary of these 3 episodes. Are you ready, Shadon?
As ready as I'm going to be. Let's do this.
All right, I'm going to count you down, and then you'll get 2 minutes. 3, 2, 1, start.
Okay, we've got an ordinary person who just really wants some takoyaki, but unfortunately tries to give money back to a person who lent it for takoyaki and ends up being put in a low security, like minimal crime, like police jail fee, whatever. Fine. Meanwhile, we've got super criminals all over the place, like this outside of, Gotham City, and they're all doing their own things, but they all get their own messages saying, hey, do you want 100 million yen? And which for some reason reminded me of the opening to the Dead or Alive movie. Don't ask me why. Moving on. Let's not talk about it. So they're all being asked to find a gentleman named Cutthroat who's been executed live on TV. I mean, it's just right after the children's program, I think. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So they all end up heading to the same place, bumping into each other. You've got a brawler, you've got a doxy, you've got a courier, you've got a hacker man rather, because I refuse to call him the hacker. They're all going there. And they all gain each other's way. They manage to free Cutthroat, but Cutthroat, it turns out, is a backstabber, would you believe? Because he puts some explosive bomb collars around all their necks, including the ordinary person who's got mixed up in this. There's also a hoodlum there who is 1/3 as good as Giorno Giovanna because he only has one of the donut ring hair things as opposed to the 3 that Giorno has. Never mind. So they have a plan. They've got to go steal some stuff from a thing called the Shinkan Dansen, I think it's called, which is basically a ghost train. And then, they have to go and get some place to go get some parts. They end up in a hotel. They get attacked by some guys named the Executors, who are the big bads of the government. They are like the ultra-trained assassins who they have a massive fight in the hotel. It's
30
really
seconds.
Cool and really rad. But unfortunately, they all escape just fine. And next thing you know, they're going to get on the Shingan Dansen, and there's a big involved heist plan to get in there, including manipulating data and rubbish like that. But in the end, it all kind of works out, despite some setbacks here and there in any traditionally good heist movie. But ordinary person is the one who gets on the train with the courier, and now they're on the way to unknown territory, going to a place called Kanto. And that's it. I've done it in time. Come at me.
You did it with a few seconds to spare. Very good. That is excellent work by you. I also learned from looking at time.is that today is Mole Day. In case you didn't know that, not for these small woodland creatures that may or may not what am I trying to say? Those things can be pests, I think. Or no, wait, I'm thinking of gophers. Fuck me. Moles. Not the creature moles, but isn't mole like a chemistry thing?
Yeah.
Avogadro's constant.
Yeah.
So
look up the XKCD comic strip sometime on what a mole of moles would be like. It's basically a moon of moles.
I won't do that because I don't find mathematical humor funny at all because I'm an idiot.
You just don't, honestly, you just don't add up sometimes, mate, I swear.
Oh my Jesus, this is bad.
I could not resist doing that because I knew it would cause you great pain.
Plug the Patreon, please.
All right, okay. So before we go any further, just to mention that we are going to be covering not just this show, but we're going to 2 others this season. One of which is going to be Suritama, and the other of which is going to be the 2nd season of Showa Genroku Raku Shinju. So those were both picked by our patrons. So think to yourself, hey, you know what? I'd like these 2 charming and handsome devils to, cover a show that I want to see. You want to do that? Get yourself on the Patreon for at least $3 or $5 as appropriate, and you can then help us pick the course of our future shows when we get into 2021. I mean, I know we all want to go into 2021. I certainly do, for a variety of reasons. So certainly, it can't hurt to put that on the table for you as well. We get other benefits. You can ask us questions about the shows that we're covering. If you're on the $2 tier, you get Discord access as a minimum. You can ask us questions about Akudama Drive as we watch the episodes. $3, you get to ask about Suritama and Akudama Drive. $5, Showa Genroku Shinjo Season 2, and everything else. And you get to participate in things like our group watches, game nights, all sorts of good stuff like that. Definitely do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Warui Deshou. And, drop us a couple of quid if you wish to do so. Even if it's just $1, like every little helps. And we certainly do appreciate your patronage. So thank you very much to those who continue to support us even through these tough times. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so very much. And we're going to now answer those supporters' questions, I think.
We are indeed. We've got a few this week.
Excellent.
So, the very first couple of them come from GoGo Atomic Robot, and the first one of which is, what would your Akudama alias be? Mine would be Drunkard. Yeah, I'm keeping to type here. I mean, you're literally seeing me drink booze on stream. So yeah, Drunkard or Bullshitter maybe, that would be the other one. But that's technically not too far removed from Swindler. So yeah, we'll just go with Alcoholic.
I'm so bad at this.
You can't be Doxer though, because Doxer's already taken.
No, but well, also that's not my skill set. And yes, so what's good, HF? It's a newcomer in the chat. It would appear. I guess. I mean, what? Dad? Is Dad a skill set? Is it a useful tool? Will I just be forced to babysit Cutthroat? I feel like that would be my role.
No, I'm sorry. I can't take seriously the fact that your Akudama title is going to be Daddy or any variation or spin thereof.
Yes.
Oh my god.
I suppose if not that, then wrestling watcher? I don't know. I don't know what I do that's like valuable.
Pundit. There you go. You're the pundit.
Pundit. No. Oh, that makes it. I don't. Oh. No, it's not. First of all, it's not. It's not better than Daddy. It's not at all. 2, I have to have hot takes for everything. That's just exhausting. Like, it just adds so much mental labor to all observations one makes. Like, oh, I have to have a take. I have to have an opinion that's gonna piss people off in some way. Yeah, but this is for a limited slice of our lives.
Oh god. Actually, yeah, that would become infuriating very quickly. These cornflakes are mediocre.
How about I have it. This
loaf has neither meat nor loaf in it.
No, I have a good one. I think this is legit. Okay, and it incorporates skills from not only fatherhood but marriage.
Oh, okay.
I'll be the negotiator.
Nice.
Even though there's already, I think there's already an anime called, but I'm just a character. I'm not. That's not the title of the show. So we're not cribbing from the title of another show.
Are you very handy with a megaphone? Then I assume. Is that how you discipline your kids whenever they go to their room? Do you just stand outside with a megaphone going, "This is your last chance. Come out with your hands up"?
There are different kinds of negotiators. No, I don't treat it like a hostage situation when my wife and I are getting in an argument.
Maybe you should try it once. Who knows how it'll go?
Oh, Jesus. I'm trying to envision any positive outcome of that, and I'm struggling.
It's going to end up like that gift from Police Academy, or the naked gun. Nothing to see here. Disperse, and the whole place is just blowing up behind him.
Annie,
right, so
I've got past transgressions you've committed against me, and I'm willing to not talk about them. If you will, please come out of your room and let's talk. That would be very bad.
Oatmeal cookies. I baked them myself.
Yeah.
All right. So we've determined that I'm either drunkard or bullshit, and we go with drunkard or alcoholic, basically, because it's not strictly speaking true, but it's what everyone believes at this point. And at that point, well, what's the difference? And of course, Doc is the negotiator. So there we are. Yeah. Feel free to, in chat, by the way, suggest what your own Akudama title would be. I'd be curious to hear those.
Please.
Question 2 from Gogo Tate Robot. Place your bets. Who will commit a sudden yet inevitable betrayal? Hoodlum.
Yeah, damn it! You always go for like the least obvious, but in that way, I suppose he's the most obvious.
Oh
Right?
no, I've got evidence for this, and I'll tell you why. Because they dropped a hint in episode 2.
Oh.
They said that the executors or the executors or whatever you want to call them, they're trained in combat, but they're also trained in infiltration and espionage.
Yes, there's undercover work. There's clearly someone as an undercover executor.
Yeah, it's the hoodlum. I'm waiting for the brawler to try and punch him at some point. He just catches his hand like this, and he's like, "Bro, that's rude." He just boom throws him away.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought this up because that is your shot that you've called. I'm gonna call my shot now, and that is we're bringing the Reagan back into the story. Do you remember? Cast your mind back to the first time you watched Mob Psycho 100, season number 1. And
so Mob Psycho 100, because I distinguish it between Mob Psycho 100 and Mob Psycho 200, because that's naming convention he should have gone with, and people are just plain wrong.
Listen, 100 is all the percents they are. There are no more percents.
You can go to 200%.
No, it's impossible. You're talking gibberish, buddy. The alcohol is already getting to you.
You're the one who said you weren't any good with math jokes, so come at me, bro.
So we'll think about Mob Psycho, right? In the sort of last quarter of the first season of that show, Reagan has been gone for a couple of episodes, but then he comes back when he just waltzes into Claw's hideout. And the way he kind of is talking and acting, and like he's got this confidence that he belongs, and he's got people following him. And you may not have the first time you watched it, but the first time I watched it, there was a small part of me that thought, what if he is like really a psychic? What if he is really the boss of Claw, and like all the sort of a part of his game is just kind of playing the fool in public to throw you off? I predict that not that the swindler necessarily will actually turn out to be an Akudama and everything like that, but I think that the show will write in such a way as to leave kind of open at a certain point. Wow, is Swindler really, like, has she been putting on a front as a scared normal person? Is she really a badass? Is this part of the swindle? Like, I think that'll be a thing that we're supposed to think. Like,
Swindler, stop swindling.
This is not Dora the Explorer. Stop. But yeah, I think that'll be like there will be some ambiguity there. I mean, hell, she may it may end up where she really is an arch criminal mastermind, and this is part of it. But I don't think that's the way they will go. I think that they're just going to sort of allow you to think, like, leave a lot of room for the possibility. A lot will end up happening or something like that. Things will fall into place, and you're like, oh my god. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, this is actually really interesting to me, and I'll tell you why. Because you and I are coming at this from different perspectives, and I think that's really valuable because you have much more familiarity with the video game series for which the creator is most famous for, and my familiarity starts and ends with what I look at when I see the first lines on Wikipedia, and so that's going to influence like how we approach these shows as we go along. So I'm actually really interested that you've come up with that different suggestion, and maybe that might be. Maybe unconsciously or consciously, like your knowledge of Danganronpa playing that, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, by the way. But I just find it. I think it's going to be interesting to see as we go along, like how our own experiences will feed into that. So you're on the hoodlum. Sorry, I'm on the hoodlum. You're saying swindler, maybe
not as a cop. I don't think that she's an undercover cop. I think the deal will be that she's been pretending to be an ordinary person, but she really is a criminal mastermind, and this is all part of her. Are you
saying she swindled herself into not believing she's
Akudama? No. But that it's all.
I'm kidding.
Not that she's deluded, but that it's not a light from Death Note situation where he makes himself forget that he's the Death Note man.
I've never watched Death Note. All I know is the man could just. I've never understood it. I'm sure people could explain at length why it is, but it's just like, why doesn't he just kill the detective? Write his name in. Done. Oh, because he doesn't know that. Whatever. Fuck it. I'm not gonna fall into that, like, quagmire of trying to figure this out secondhand.
He doesn't know his name.
Anyway,
he has to know his birth name to write it in the book. The detective is just a guy. He just goes by the letter L. So. But no, this is not that. I think that she's
writing with asterisks. It's like when you fill in like a find replace function. You just put...
right, the wildcards. Yes.
Yeah.
That would probably kill a lot of people. Somehow.
When you make an omelet,
Exactly right. No, I think not that she's fooling herself or not that she's a cop, but that she has, for whatever reason, fooled the other Akudama into thinking, well, she's just a normal person, but really, that's just part of her act. Maybe she's even fooled the cat. Maybe she's even fooled the Robo Neko, or perhaps Robo Neko's in on it. Either way, I think this will be. I think this will be what they do. But as far as who's the traitor, I also think it's Hoodlum is the most logical guess at this point. But. Who could fucking say?
The neat thing about that, though, is that it makes sense for the other characters not to suspect him because they're actually two unskilled Akudama, if you want to call that, both Swindler and him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're the nobodies. And all the evidence we've seen thus far makes him look legit, but similarly, like, if there's anyone who's truly faking, it's her, because we have her inside perspective. So, yeah, the show's, like, there's a lot of neat little things with the way the show has been constructed to keep this stuff ambiguous, but also put the seeds in place for things to come as well.
Totally.
As I say, it's a dumb show. It's popcorn show, really. It's your beer and pizza show, as I think Gogo Robot said. But that doesn't mean it's a cheap and tacky thing. It's actually been well made, in my opinion.
Totally, right. And it has its own logic, I think, is a nice way to put it.
Oh, absolutely. So, question 3 from Gogo Robot. Akudama Drive introduced almost the entire main cast in episode 1. How successful was it at establishing characters, and why? This is a big question, and I'm going to need to break this down into separate things to answer this. But I'm actually going to, historically, whenever I've read these out, I've gone first. So I'm going to actually pass this over to Doc for a second. So let him go first.
So is the question, did it do well establishing the cast in episode 1?
Yes. Okay. And how did it do it?
Okay. Well, I think so. I'll draw on my Danganronpa experience here because what Kaido, is that the correct name? Nope, Kaiho. What Kaiho kind of does in Danganronpa is everyone, it's a very similar kind of naming convention and introduction. Like everyone in Danganronpa is being recruited to this high school that is elite and only recruits the best of the best. So you have to be the best in your field at something, like the best baseball player, the best gymnast, the most affluent prodigy, the luckiest person alive, all these weird and interesting ultimates. And so you kind of get their identity in terms of what they do and then how they look. Like the ultimate swimmer might be this like real athletic girl who seems like she's being written to be an airhead. The ultimate affluent prodigy will be, will look like you probably expect that sort of person to look and be a snobbish asshole, or so it seems. And so it seems is key because like a big part of what Danganronpa does is like take your expectations as far as the tropes it lays out in those introduction sequences, and either totally subverts them or spins them enough to where it's interesting. And so I think this is similar here in Akudama Drive, both in what happens and what I think is going to happen. Because we kind of get all these neat little introductions where they get a beautifully animated sequence where the colors are much brighter and everything looks a little bit more comic booky, and more just kind of it pops, and you get like a title card, hoodlum, and you get their sentence, right? And that combined with how they look is meant to be the what you take away about them in the very first episode, you're supposed to just have the surface level impression. You're supposed to be like, okay, this person is an archetype. I got it. I got you figured out. And then sort of watch and see how the archetype is played with and or subverted and be entertained by that. So I think in that regard, mostly pretty successful. I mean, you kind of understand Brawler, Courier, Doctor, and Hacker.
I understand Brawler all right. Oh God, we'll get to that soon enough, but his introduction was just incredible.
Yeah.
Because he's literally just sat on top of a stack of robots and punched
so
to death.
Good. I mean,
and I'm like, you've sold me on him. That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
But I suppose I should elaborate on that because I think this question is quite complicated, and I'll try and break it down into different chunks. So, a couple of times previously in this podcast's history, I've talked about the idea of how a show sets out what I describe as a contract with its audience, which is, here's what I'm going to do. Here's the tone I'm going to set. Here's how serious or silly I'm going to be. Here's what themes I'm going to cover, if any. What I plan to give you, or what I believe that I will give you. And then, of course, you have to then see how it measures up as time goes on. Let's go back to the old the old staple of ours that you and I have discussed to death, which is Franks. When we talk about Franks, we wanted a mecha show, didn't we? Mm-hmm. And mecha didn't really factor into that. Now, I should stress, as much as I dislike that show and still do, although I do wish I'd tackled it differently and critically, but that's a discussion for a different day. That just because it's not what I was expecting from it doesn't mean that's necessarily inherently bad. But I think that for me, it's out of the stall. This is going to be a mecha show from the people who made took part in Gunbuster and Ava and all that, and then we didn't get that. I know. Man, I know.
God, just thinking hindsight, right?
I know it still stings even after all this time.
Yeah.
But that means as much as I think to myself, hey, I come to anime for stuff like, Aizoken, Decadence, Penguin Drum, Land of Lustrous, where there's things for me to chew on mentally and emotionally, where I can get invested in the drama and all that. There's times as well, like I say, when you want a show that is just, it's just a fun popcorn ride. It's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with having those if that's what the show says it's going to be from the outset, from how it presents itself. And make no mistake, that's how Akudama, the show, comes across to me. It's very clear at the start. It's all about bombast, all about bright colours, all about style. Look at the opening, for example, when it finally plays and the song that goes with it. So I think that's a part in first...
My favorite part of the opening is Tukio. Spelled out.
But I think that's a big part of why I like the show, because it isn't trying to pretend to be something it's not, and also it's giving me exactly what it promised, which is tangentially why I often rail against fan service. Not because I inherently hate fan service as a concept. I'm not some sort of Franciscan monk, I don't, put a chastity belt on every day before I get out of bed. But if I'm here for a show, it's meant to be about characters and drama, and then suddenly there's a panty shot in there that's not otherwise justified, that's why I get annoyed. But then, of course, we bring up things like Shinameta, and, well, that sets out its stall in a very similar way, where it's like, I am going to be a sex comedy. And it's going to be puerile and stupid and juvenile. And there will be points when it's crass and it goes too far. Don't get me wrong. But at least it's being honest about what it's going to be about. So that's the first thing that I'll mention as to why this works, even before I talk about the characters.
Mm-hmm. One day I think you should do a discussion of whether or not you think Trigun breaks the contract with its audience. And whether or not...
because you're talking about...
Yeah, and whether or not, you can break the contract and still be successful as a show. I'd like to. We don't have time to get into that, of course, but I just think that would be interesting.
That is certainly a discussion to be had. I'll give you my initial reaction, which is I actually don't think it does break the contract, but that's all because you get an idea very quickly that Vash is not who he's meant to be. But that's a discussion for different time.
I watched the first 4 episodes of that show again. And then watch the last 4.
I feel like we should just cover it someday.
I know. Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Because it's a phenomenal show that is actually surprisingly rich thematically. You've got nature and nurturing there and all sorts of good stuff like that.
It's an all-time.
But anyway. Oh, it's great. It's great. It also features one of my favorite anime ladies, which is, of course, Meryl Streif.
Ah, Meryl Streif. Yes.
She's great. Mm-hmm. She can shoot me any day, provided it doesn't kill me. But that's a thing from the pod. But anyway, so that's the first thing, which is that even before I talk about the characters, the stall's been set. It's going to be a silly, pulpy crime heist thing with a lot of action. Great. and it's delivered on that. I can't be mad at that for it delivering on what it said it's going to do. Like, I don't, for example, get angry at the fact that, hey, there's a pornography mag. Like, I've made the joke before. Like, pornography mag, it has porn in it. Yay! Of course it does. Like, it delivers on what it's meant to do. It's not like reading Tolstoy and finding, like, panty shots in the middle of that inexplicably. Although maybe Tolstoy wrote that, I don't know. Maybe that's why War and Peace is so fit, because the inserts are just all smut shots. But wow. So anyway, moving on from that, then the characters. Mm-hmm. The funny thing is, you mentioned the fact about the title cards, and you know what that reminded me of all things?
Hit me.
Have you ever seen, or have you at least got an idea of what it looks like? The Suicide Squad film, the live-action one with Will Smith.
Hell no.
No, okay, fair enough. No. So there's a lot of history about Suicide Squad as a film and how troubled its production was, and how the tone is completely all over the place. Where it was essentially meant to be filmed initially as a David Ayer grim dark, like, Batman film kind of, it was the joyless piece of shit, basically, which it still kind of was. But they tried, partly because of the success of Guardians of the Galaxy and because Warner Brothers, desperately chasing Marvel's coattails. Like, I have no like preference on superhero teams or from one person or from one group. So all I ask is that the films are good, and Warner's aren't. Sorry, DC fanboys, tough shit. Anyway, but the thing is, in Suicide Squad, every character's got a title card. You had like Deadshots where it's like lethal with 9mm AK-47, blah 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 blah. And they're meant to be quite funny and preppy and all that, but then they don't gel with the rest of the tone of the film at all. But the title cards here work because they do gel with the tone. You've got the introductions for each of these little vignettes which show exactly what kind of person they are. They're quick to the point. Mm-hmm. They're diverse in the action that they get involved in. Mm-hmm. And they tell you what the characters are like very quickly. Brawler's going to brawl. Surprise, surprise.
Brawler's going to brawl.
Yep. Like, he is probably one of the most simple anime characters I've come across recently, but his simplicity is to his benefit. There's nothing to him. He just wants to fight, and it's great watching him fight. What more do I want?
I wouldn't be surprised. So this is the thing about the subversion and the trope play that Kaiho gets up to in Danganronpa is I would not be surprised if there's more to Brawler. Like, if, I don't know, he ends up taking a bullet for Hoodlum or something like that, as in, like, this is, and then there's a, like, not out of the blue, but it sort of leads up to, like, maybe you get some kind of a speech about, like, ever since me and my brother grew up in, like, this shitty part of town, like, here's how I learned, like, what true friendship means. And, like, once you're Anakis, you're, like, Anakis for life. And, shit like that. I mean, that's, again, nothing, like, that's going to blow you away. But, like, I would not be surprised if there's, like, a second layer to Brawler in the episodes to come.
Well, unless he takes the bullet from the back from Hoodlum, that's my guess.
No. I think so. I bet Hoodlum will betray the group. Well, it's fun. I mean, speculation. We could speculate a million different, but okay. It just totally wouldn't. That's the thing, though. It's part of the fun, though, isn't it? Yeah, it's super fun. I mean, so Hoodlum, I could see it. Hoodlum betraying the group, but bodyguard. Why bodyguard? Why did I call him fucking bodyguard? What in the? He's not the Yojimbo.
Is that a secret Akudama?
Damn.
Is that the DLC? Was he cut content?
But Brawler, having experienced the betrayal and being knowledgeable of it, still protects him or sticks up for him or saves him anyway. It's some kind of, because, like, you get the feeling even in these episodes that, like, I mean, he may not be, the brightest bulb in the pack or whatever, but, like, he's loyal. You know what I mean? He seems like a very loyal guy and someone you'd want in your corner. Not just because of his physical prowess, but because of that loyalty.
Yeah, absolutely. So all the individual character introductions work really well. They're short, they're punchy, to the point. But there's more to it than that. I think one of the key things that this show does well is that it becomes a problem when you introduce an archetypical character that is just all archetype, that if it's just them, it can get dry very quickly. But I think it works for two reasons. One of which is the POV character is a regular person. In fact, they are the ordinary person.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think the show does some great moments where it actually, through camera framing and storyboarding, continues to delineate the fact that Swindler is not part of the rest of the group. Like when they all crowd into the elevator and say, "Are you coming or what?" There's a hesitation present there for her to join them. And of course, the moment she spends outside, like, on the dock where everyone else is inside. So
Totally.
there is reinforcement of the fact that she's not part of the group, even though she is of a kind, but she's not really one of them, so to speak.
Yeah, and she doesn't get her own spinny, cool intro with the title card either. Well, I love the juxtaposition that they do after the last. I think Doctor is the last title card. I believe that's the case. I could be wrong about that, but after all four of them, the main people have their introductory sequences. It cuts to ordinary person Swindler just going like a huge giant sigh, like, what the fuck, man? Like it's just a great, like, it's sort of separates the two, like you said, but it also kind of, as if episode 1 is sort of the founding document for like or a contract, like it is also part of what to expect, right? On the part of the audience, like we won't all be lost with these ultimate fucking amazing superpower, super skilled criminals. Like there'll be someone like us in there, someone who looks at this world and sees something weird and different and odd. And yeah, that's good.
I'll note, by the way, for people who might have thought, why was there smoke coming from this side of my camera? It was this. It's just a candle burning out. Relax, my place is not on fire yet. But yeah, I just to again to dwell on that point just a tiny bit there. I think that I've spoken before about the idea of how you have audiences both in terms of us, the real living flesh and blood people watching a show, and audiences within the fictive universe. We talked about this, for example, with Isoken, where it was important for when they showed their original works, the Isoken team, that not only were we impressed, but that the audience in the show were impressed. Because if the audience hated it, but we loved it, unless that was actually a part of the intent, it would be a weird disconnect, wouldn't it? It'd be odd. And I think this plays similarly here in that this obviously isn't about like homemade anime, but we have an audience member, or two in fact even. We have the hoodlum and the swindler. He arguably plays that role as well, provided he's not putting on a facade. But, well, again, that's speculation. But so her having these reactions of all this crazy stuff going on helps ground things a little bit. If it was just strictly about a badass, like let's say we did a show that was just the courier, none of the other Akudama, no swindler, no nothing, that would get boring real fucking fast.
Oh my god, he's like he's the worst character too. I mean, he's great for what he is, right? But like, yeah, imagining him without anyone to play off of, it would suck.
Yeah. And that's the second and final thing I'll mention in response to this question as to why it works. The show wastes no time in pitting them against each other initially. We have all the introductions and then they all meet up. They all have the prize they're chasing after. That's interesting and fun to watch. We get to see them fight each other. We get to see them playing off against each other. We get to see things like Courier doing, I can't remember the name of the film. It might Talk, that's it. Fucking Talk, the one where they start fighting on motorbikes. And he uppercuts Brawler with the motorbike, which is incredible.
Oh man,
and they have some snippy banter here and there. We have the one, for example, where inexplicably Doxer has ended up jumping on the back of his motorbike and just goes, "Get off, wench."
Wench. He's just always calling people shitheads as well, which is amusing.
Yeah,
again,
he's an edgelord, but the thing is, like,
yes.
he is absolutely an edgelord, but he's not the only character in the show, and there are characters that he plays off, which works in my opinion. We have good chemistry.
Man. Yeah, and that's the thing is like, Kaiho. I've never seen a show or played a game or anything like that where, like, they're all that they do is create ensembles and never like one character that's totally focused on. Now, I should stress, in Akudama, Shadon, they're working with a much smaller cast with only these six criminals here. Really, 4 Akudama and 2 kind of hangers on, and I guess the cat kind of counts.
5.
Oh fuck, you're right. You're right. You're totally right about that. So yeah, but still relatively small. I don't know if you want to count even if you're generous and count the executors, and grandma executor, that all those together are still fewer characters than are in any single Danganronpa game. There's because every single round there has to be at least one murder and then one suspect when you find them guilty of the murder also has to die. And there's like 5 or 6 rounds, so you have to have a lot of characters to kill off, and then a big enough group of good guys of innocent characters who are solving the mystery to still make things interesting. So it will be cool to see what happens with a more intimate group of characters, if they get more focus or if it's kind of just the same thing we've come to expect. I'm looking forward to that aspect of things.
Yeah. One other thing I'll mention as well is that this show does something that, again, the Suicide Squad film does not. It does not spend any time explaining how any of them can do the things they do. Suicide Squad had a habit of going into laborious detail about how some people, like, the characters could do certain things, and I don't give a flying fuck about it. Like, I know, like, Brawler's gonna brawl and he punch robots. Do I want to know how he's strong enough to do that? No, I don't give a fuck.
Tell him about like the musculoskeletal structure of.
He's got nanomachines that enhance his abilities.
Exactly. Give me some X-ray shots of him and fuck that.
I mean, the most exceptional moment of that in these 3 episodes, and this again shows why it works, is Doctor dies. She gets her throat cut and her hand cut off, and then a couple of minutes later, we come back to them after escaping the executors. And I think it might have been, I don't know if it was actually Swindler or someone else. It was either Swindler or Hoodlum. It was, wait, why are you alive? And
that was Brawler.
That was Brawler, sorry. Yeah. It was Brawler.
You're not dead?
You're not dead? And she's and this is the thing, I love how the show leans into that, just blatantly showing that she's there. She's like, oh, I stitched myself back up. I don't know how one does that because she had one hand gone and she was bleeding to death.
She was decapitated, right?
But the thing is, cut throat, yeah. The thing is, again, there is I think the rule for this is I only care about what the show takes seriously.
Mm-hmm.
If the show made a big song and dance about how, when an executor kills someone, they're dead for real, and then she comes back and there's no explanation for it, then I would be annoyed. But the show is not really all that serious. It's not all that, it plays fast and loose with its own internal logic. And I'm okay with that, really, to be quite honest. Again, this is going back to the idea of the contract. It sets out, hey, you know what? We're going to have a fun ride. The rules are to be toyed and broken and bent and all that. We don't really... There will be a consistency, don't get me wrong. But the consistency is looser than you might expect. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. You're on board with that. I'm on board with that. So, yeah, I think that this show hits all the right marks for setting up the characters. I would be curious to see how it reacts if they do indeed, as you say, provide backstory. Because part of me thinks that if they can keep the heist thing going for a little while and keep it focused more on Swindler as the person they do all the drama with, I would be okay with that. And I'm not saying I wouldn't be okay with them getting backstory. Like you proposed the Brawler scenarios, hey, I had a brother back in, back home, and he died. He was the best fighter there ever was, and I wanted to be just like him. I never stopped punching my way to the top, and I'm still going. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I wouldn't be okay with that. I just need to see how it would play out.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes taking the contract and tearing it in two can actually be for the best for a show. Decadence, for example.
Oh yeah, right. There's a big twist early.
Yeah.
Speaking of expectations, and Catherine, I believe we just finished up now. Gogo's third question. So, speaking of expectations, Shadon, one of the things I heard about the show going into it, and one of the ways it was pitched to me, is that it is a cyberpunk. Do you feel that Akudama Drive is thus far could be classified as cyberpunk? I'm not sure that I do.
This question is a trap. And I'm going to... No, it is. And I'll tell you why. Because the thing is, cyberpunk as we know it in 2020 is not the cyberpunk of like William Gibson era. Why am I saying that? Because cyberpunk from William Gibson's Neuromancer era and around that time was predicated on this kind of like, how do I put it, anti-Orientalism, even mildly xenophobic view that China was going to take over the world. Why else, for example, in a lot of cyberpunk is the currency some form of like future yen, like new yen, for example.
Sure.
That's all of the all of the like companies are Chinese, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, obviously,
Japan as well.
Hey,
and like Philip K. Dick, I think, was it Man in the High Castle? Japan won the war, and I find that that is a good. So I'm not a scholar of cyberpunk by any means, but it does seem,
to be fair, but
it does seem like in the early luminaries had a little bit of a fascination or fetishization, perhaps, of Asian cultures, and like how they would kind of what it would look like if they became like the monoculture.
Yeah. The other thing to note as well about classic cyberpunk is that it was very, very anti-capitalist. It was even anarchic in nature.
Totally.
And you hear things like, for example, about how, Cyberpunk 2077, which is coming out fairly soon, the CD Projekt Red game, isn't really about that. It doesn't quite understand what cyberpunk was, that kind of thing. You hear this sometimes. I think that the modern understanding of cyberpunk, the diluted version of it, is just an aesthetic one where it's about how it looks. Okay. And that plays a big part, and it's certainly in a cyberpunk world. But cyberpunk in itself is also like how, there is, of course, anti-capitalist agenda. There is, fighting back against massive corporations. There is Shadowrun, which you have told me to play a couple of times, and I have played. Mm-hmm. Classic Dungeons and Dragons style tabletop game centered computer game, where the lore of that is that there are indeed mega corporations that own like the entire world. And hey, I don't think that's ever going to happen. There's no mega corporations out there that made built. But then again, like everything else, it's like Avery Brooks, Captain Sisko's refrain in the IBM commercial. I was promised flying cars. Like, we get all of the stuff that comes from a cyberpunk future, but it's not cool or good looking or anything.
All the shit. Right.
Yeah. Where's my neon streets? Where's my neon sunset? Thank you very fucking much. Why do I even get that?
So
why can my hand not turn into a plasma cannon?
So what you're saying then is that that cyberpunk should be understood and is validly understood correctly as more of an aesthetic or formal something about the presentation and setting more than like the theme or content.
No, the inverse. I'm saying that at its core, cyberpunk should be about what it was originally about.
Oh,
which
okay,
is anti-capitalist, anarchist, rebelling against authority. And then presentation second. Don't get me wrong, presentation is still a big part of it. And I actually do think, therefore, that Akudama Drive nails both points, although it isn't really leaning too heavily on the anti-capitalist. And I'll tell you why.
Right, yeah, I don't think so either.
But bear in mind, there are still elements of this. I was going to save these for my talking points.
Sorry. Well, then we can table it if you want to. We'll come back to that then.
But I do think it is, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily, how should we say, like a thoughtful cyberpunk story.
That's not thoughtful anything.
Yeah. No, but that's not, again, we're okay with that. We like it because it knows what it is and it has no shame in it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll come back to that later, so table that for the moment. We have questions now from Kate Rose. Kate has actually given us 3, so I'm going to go through all of them. So, the ordinary person, the swindler, do you think there's more to her than she appears? If there is, I think that she's not aware of it. I have a feeling, call it a feeling in my gut here, that, like I say, joke as I made, maybe she has swindled herself at some point. Maybe there is a history. There are, of course, scenes like where she gets scanned and she says she's not an Akudama, but the story can be whatever it needs to be to then have it turn around like records falsified. I think that the show would be doing itself a favor though if it kept that ambiguous. Like, I can see, for example, like after this train mission that they're on is completed, let's say you have a scene between Hacker and Courier. Okay, you have them, and you see in the background, like say over there, you've got Swindler talking with the hoodlum, and they're saying, she's not an Akudama, but she pulled that off, didn't she?
This is exactly what I meant. Exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. Turn the viewpoint on her and have her be the point of critical examination. And even then, if it turns out she is just exactly as she presents, which is, I'm a regular girl, all I want is some fucking takoyaki, and now I've turned into a super criminal, then that's still fine. But if it keeps the ambiguity going, it keeps us engaged as an audience. So
yeah,
I think my answer to the question is, I don't mind one way or the other what the result is, provided that it does something with it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I totally agree. I think the show will sort of, it will make us think it is writing itself into a corner where she has to be. It will make us, it will show a lot of evidence, or at least what the characters in the show believe to be. And then we could believe it too, like as evidence that she really is an Akudama. But as you say, it'll be just ambiguous enough, such that they can get out of it in the end and swerve us again. And it'll be that she's just an ordinary person who was given the chance to be extraordinary and rose to the challenge, something like that. So yeah. I kind of agree with you. I do think that she will be ultimately, at the end of the day, she's not going to have been like an exceptional or like incredibly talented person from the off, but nonetheless she'll prove her worth to the group.
I think again it's important to reiterate that the show has listed her as the ordinary person, and that is just as important part of her character as the swindler part, if not more so.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely. Okay, next question. If you had to guess, who do you think might be behind the cat? One of the already introduced cast or someone else entirely? My immediate answer is if I were to pick any of the cast, it would be the hacker, but that is too obvious. I mean, we're playing with a show here where on a dime it could turn out that any of them were in charge of it. Here's my guess, though. This is a wild card guess, and I'll tell you what it is. The first thing I want to know, by the way, is just an interesting visual coherence here, which is the cat has a collar on, just like everyone else now does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nothing. I'm not dwelling on that because it's not a big point, but I just thought it was interesting to note that they're all the pets of this person, much as the cat is. What if I told you it was going to be Grandma Executive?
That's exactly who I would have said if I had to. If you force me to predict.
Yeah.
But it's going to be fun to see. It's going to be really fun to see if it could go fucking really stupid and elaborate. It could be just outrageous. It could be like, the cat is the Akudama that's like the consciousness of Swindler was transferred into the brain of the cat so she doesn't know. And then she puts it back later and for her to become the real Swindler. And I mean, they could just go full on crazy bullshit and it would be amazing.
Well,
or it could be simple as it's an executor playing a game with them,
Yeah. Well, I'm just glad that Luna has got a new job after, looking after a team of Sailor Guardians. Good for us to move on.
Out of work. Yeah. It's in this economy.
It's tough,
you don't turn
tough
it down.
Industry.
Yeah.
So next question then. In fact, did you want to add in Sadok? I think you were in agreement with me, weren't you? Like, it's going to be the grandma, isn't it? Granny goodness. That's what I'm calling it out.
Yeah, I mean, if it's anyone, for that we've already seen, then sure, I'll place that bet along with you.
So next question is: do you think the Akudama are ordinary humans who've honed their skills, or is it more like X-Men where they have a genetic advantage or superpower? The honest answer to this, Kate, is I'm not really fussed one way or the other. I would prefer, as I mentioned before, that any explanation for what they can do be kept to as bare minimum as possible. And when I say that, like you were talking about the idea of giving the characters a backstory, if I learned why they became the way they did, that's fine. But if I learned how they do what they do, then that bogs it down, and I don't care. That's detail I'm not interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't mind, for example, learning, like, if there is a backstory for Brawler, why he brawls, but I'm not interested in how he's capable of punching a robot to death. Like, It diminishes it, you know. I'm sorry, but brawler's gonna brawl.
Just like,
you know?
just see a book in an airport. Why I brawl. By brawl.
Look, Akudama Drive is nominative determinism, the anime. Let's be frank here.
Oh,
it
Jesus.
really is.
Yeah. Sweet Lord. Please go on.
Did you not have an answer to that question?
What?
No.
What? Oh, the question. What was the question? You've dislodged it from my brain. Why I brawl?
I thought I was the one who was drinking. But anyway, do you think the Akudama are ordinary humans who hone their skills? So
yeah.
trait, nature or nurture, basically. How did they get it?
I think they're probably regular people that or not. That's probably the wrong verbiage because there's some of them are far from ordinary. But I think that they're not like mutants or superhero types. I don't think, but I mean, ultimately, you're right that it doesn't matter too much. But yeah, I'm gonna go that they're just very, very good at what they do because they've trained a lot.
Yeah, I remember that. All right, so the final question. This one comes from Mirror on the Wall. And before I read this question out, I would just very much like to wish Mirror a happy birthday.
Yep.
If you're listening, Mirror, I hope you're having a fan-fucking-tastic time. I hope you're having all the good treats, all the sweet stuff, all the presents. Thank you again for being a patron of ours. And yeah, I hope you're having a good time also on your day. So the question is, and this is the fun one, this is the amusing one. So with reference to the Doctor, would you let her be your Doctor?
Oh boy. Well, as tempting as that may be, I don't trust her. So no. I'm gonna say no.
You know what? I'm gonna say yes, and I'll tell you why. It's not because I'm a thirsty bastard. I mean, that is true, but that's a different matter entirely. But in the scene that we see of her when she's dealing with the gentleman who's having a heart attack, which she says, by the way, oh, it's just a little heart attack. And I'm like, oh, really? I didn't realize we graded these things on a curve, Like, heart attacks, like, I'm a trained first aider here, start at serious shit and end at dead. There is no 0 to 60 on a heart attack. It starts at 55 and then goes to 60 if things go downhill. But again, I found funny. I'm not criticizing the way this wrist. I thought it was quite amusing. But you'll note that she didn't kill the guy who had the heart attack. She just killed everyone else there. So I think that if she does house calls and there's no one else in the vicinity, I'll be fine.
Did she save him? Did she save him? I didn't see him like get up or
No, she stitched him up. She stitched him up. He's fine.
I need confirmation on this.
I'm certain there was a pulse. That's my guess. And I will note one of our patrons, I think Go Side Robot, said an answer that also is very valid and I feel is worth mentioning. Depends on the procedure.
Hey.
I'm going to say flat out. Anything sexual health related, no. Look, she's hot. Don't get me wrong, but she is also like constantly using a scalpel. Don't trust it.
She loves to dissect, and they've gone straight for the knife pervery, and just leaned into the, It's been a while since I've dissected a youngster, and like all that, the like lips close to the blade at all times. It's glorious. I love it. I love it so much. It's good horny, and I like it.
Whenever she does a crossword, the answer's always autopsy, even if it's longer or shorter in terms of letters.
Exactly.
That's all she writes in. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Cutthroat's is knife.
Oh, Cutthroat.
That's the only language. That's the only language that Cutthroat speaks. It's the language of knife.
How do we feel about Cutthroat? Well, you know what? No, let's. Did you had to rank all the Akudama in terms of?
Oh, we've got to do this now. We've got to pick our favorite, haven't we?
We have to rank them all because there's only a few. There's only 7. So
all right. Well, I can do this quickly. I'm not actually going to include Swindler and Hoodlum in this because they're distinct in my opinion, but I'm definitely going to include the others. So I'm going to start number 1, Brawler, easily.
Okay.
Dude was channeling some real fucking Sabin energy at one point. He actually said he wanted to punch the train, and I am so sad we didn't get to see that happen.
It should have happened.
If you told me the Brawler could suplex a train like Sabin from Final Fantasy VI, I would have believed it. Yeah. I'm actually very sad we didn't even get to see it. But never mind. I mean, I'll be fair, it wouldn't have been the first reference we'd have had in this show, because we've already had the Akira bike slide.
Yeah, right? Yeah. As we have to. I mean, I feel like they were just ticking a box.
Yeah. I mean, come on, they had to get that in there.
What did he say? What a crude way to stop.
I know. So, Brawler, definitely.
Okay.
I'm gonna... This is where it gets tricky, because, like, to me, it feels like I have the top Brawler, and then I have, like, two that I like, and
you can
two
do
you
can do a tier list. That's fine.
I can do it. All right, so my S rank is Brawler, obviously. My A rank, I'm gonna give it to Cutthroat.
Oh my god! Really?
What? I'll explain.
I hate Cutthroat so much.
Hold your horses, right? I'll explain. I'm gonna give it to Cutthroat, and I'm also gonna give it to Doxer.
Okay.
Cutthroat, because again, I think this is something with how the show set out. Like, he is a mass murderer and a psychopath, and he kills people. Blah 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 blah. But he's also funny because he's just obsessed with red to the point where he'll push red buttons constantly.
Is it funny though? Is it funny?
I found it funny.
I don't know.
I found it funny.
I don't know.
I liked it. Is this a math problem again, Doc? Is that why you're struggling with it?
All right, colors are now math.
Well, they are in hexadecimal. So
it was just I don't know, it was fucking annoying, dude. Like, he ruined shit just by being like, red. Let me push the. I was like, oh man, like, really? Like, this is the thing we have to worry about. It just bothered me. Like, they're all, like, very successful. Well, Cutthroat was in prison, so but presumably he had never been caught before. And he'd committed the most heinous crimes and killed 1,000 people. He just seems like a simpleton. How did he not get caught before now? He's kind of an idiot.
I don't think he's all that simpleton, because bear in mind we see the moment when he tries to pass through the force field, sees it, and stops himself down his tracks. So I think that part of his personality is an affectation. At least when it comes down to the business of doing the killing. Yeah. He can do that. And let's not forget that he throws knives one after another through these barriers to try and push the button, which was just incredible.
I mean, that was cool, but they all could have been dead before them because he put the afterburners on the fucking bus. Like,
I'm okay with that.
God only knows
that
what
shakes things up. I mean, there are a bunch of criminals. There's going to be unstable one in there to mix things up every now and again.
Speaking out of universe, as a reader of the text, I totally get it, and I like. It's good that those sort of things happen. But like, in the story, it's just fucking annoying. He's an annoying person, and I dislike him greatly. Why has he formed this attachment to Swindler, other than oh good, we get some fun jokes where he's like stepping up to the line of consent, and she has to push him away. Good, perfect, amazing.
Yeah, those I weren't so hard. And I would suppose, since I'm talking about the Doctor, I wasn't really fond of the "hey, you gay" thing. And like,
right, look, right.
I need to explain that. I need to explain that in more detail, because I'm not going to hold it heavily against the show.
No,
but I need to mention that, to me, like, all right, first off, make no mistake, like, when it comes to humor, like homophobic and racist and all that humor, it's bad for the reason that it's homophobic or racist or sexist, etc. There's that. Don't get me wrong. Am I saying that you have characters who never say it in a story? No, of course not. We've discussed this many times past in the pod in the past. We don't do ourselves a service by, pretending this doesn't exist. But the problem is that, on top of that humor is just lazy. I've said this before about other times about how, like, that kind of humor is predicated on old stereotypes and doesn't require any effort on the part of the person making it to making the joke, that is, to do that. There's, you don't do any setup, you just provide the punchline. And even beyond the fact the punchline is bullshit, It's very lazy comedy,
Sure.
and that's why I thought, even beyond like how this is makes you, I know you're not a likable person to begin with because you're a psychopath,
Right.
but even then, like this doesn't exactly make you look funny, like in that sense. It's just lazy humor.
So I'm going to say that the joke was on her in this instance.
That's also probably true, to be fair.
Just because, yeah, I mean, my thinking is like she's not used to anyone turning her down. And why would she be? I mean, just look at her. But she's not used to that. And her first, and again, she's not a good person, so she doesn't have to, like, it makes sense for her to say something dumb like this. And her first response is like, oh, you must be gay because you're not into me. When really, Courier's just not into her. For all we know, we don't really know anything about his sexuality. Although they're sort of, kind of maybe hinting at that maybe there's a little bit of thing between him and ordinary person. But
And all I'm gonna say in regards to him being like
it didn't bother me. Let me just put that out.
I like I said before though, like if there was a procedure that she was going to do on me, it would definitely not be anything sexual health related. I think he knows that as well.
You're right. She's a liar. That's why they didn't believe her. Look, and
cut your dick off. Let's just say it as it is. That's what she's going to do.
And if I'm completely honest, I'm really just groping for reasons to dislike Cutthroat. His dumb advances on Ordinary Girl weren't something that bothered me because I didn't really. He seems like kind of a puppy that's not gonna like really push his luck, although he's being fucking annoying again. Just feeling around, reaching for reasons to not like him because I just don't care for the guy. But I understand. I guess why he needs to be there. I don't know. That he's proved himself useful, already, but
he's a knife guy. He's there with a knife at the right time,
But so he's in your A rank with the doctor.
Okay, so B would be Hacker and Courier. The thing about Hacker is that he's fine, but there's nothing much more really to him at the moment beyond being the hacker character. And every heist thing that once computers became a thing needs a hacker character. I understand that, and I like his tech and all that. That's all pretty neat. I like the haptic keyboard he has, in these little spears of light.
The bears.
But he is otherwise about as standard a hacker character archetype as you can get.
Yeah.
Which again, because the show is presented the way it is not inherently bad, but he certainly doesn't stick out as much as the others. And then there's the Courier, and he has a nice bike, I guess.
Yeah.
Although the bike itself actually isn't all that great as far as visual design goes. It's too blocky, in my opinion.
Were you a fan of the mecha in general in the show? The mechanical...
The spider mecha, I wouldn't even call it spider. Let's call it an octopus mecha, whatever it was. It was all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was okay.
I liked it. I think I like that stuff more than you. But... So that's your ranking. Are you?
Yeah, not including Hoodlum and Swindler, because they're not Akudama as I would see. They're clearly characters in the story for a different purpose.
Okay, so Shadon's taking the coward's way out. I'm gonna rank them all.
Of course, then.
And not by tier, but just by number. So, tell me if I'm forgetting anyone. Okay, number 1, the Doctor. Easy.
Yeah, no surprise there. That's because you liked this tweet of mine before, and I'll repeat it here, which is that basically the Doctor, as far as visuals goes, is Tai Takemi from Persona 5 blended with Cheryl Nome.
Pretty much.
And I'm right on that.
Oh yeah, there's no denying that.
And she is hot. I'm not going to lie about that either. I just wouldn't let her touch me in that particular place.
So Doctor 1. 2, I will go with Brawler. 3, I'll go... Oh, it's a close one. I think I'm going to go Ordinary Person 3 and Hoodlum 4. And 5, I'll go Hacker with his Leonardo watch-looking ass. He's got the eye thing. And then Courier, and then Cutthroat.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know where cat fits on that list, but
It's cat tier. There you go.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it all fits. All right, then. So that brings us to the end of our Patreon questions. So thank you very much to our regular patrons who've submitted those. It's always good to have your input on this for, more serious questions or silly. That's the benefit, though. You get to ask us whatever you want. If you want us to start shipping, we'll start shipping, Why the fuck not? Can't hurt at this point. But yeah, you can ask us whatever you want. And if you want to get involved in this, just get yourself signed up on the patreon.com/Warui Deshou. $2. That'll get you access to asking questions about Akudama Drive as we go along. Definitely check it out.
By the way,
all right.
The way you pronounced it just then made me think. Like, I'm surprised that I haven't fucked it up and said Akumada. This is a Kabukicho situation all over again for me.
That show's still poisoning you, isn't it?
Yeah, with the pronunciation. And I mean, it's not irrelevant to bring up because the setup for that show, wasn't it also like this one region of Japan versus another? And they have that going on here with Kanto and Kansai.
Oh, yes. Now that you've pointed that out, you're right. And I hate you.
Don't like it.
I hate you for that. But at the same time, we like this show. Whereas
they've already done a 1,000% better job explaining and explicating the geography and the politics and all that between the two regions than Sherlock ever did in its first season. So
yeah, well, the thing is as well is that the characters can be insufferable in Akudama Drive, but they're intended to be, and they're never insufferable to the POV characters in a way that's meant to make them seem superior. They're all very good at their job, but none of them are put on the pedestal of, hey, look how awesome this person is. Don't you feel inferior to them? They're just awesome in their own right without making other characters feel like shit.
Yeah, and it feels less like here is who you would want to be. Like these fucking criminal dudes. It's more like we have a character like you who you can feel for and empathize with if you were dropped into this incredibly bizarre situation.
Exactly. All right, so let's move on to talking points then. And I think now is probably a good time today to pick up with the cyberpunk thing.
Okay.
We might as well pick it up. So I did mention about the aesthetic being important still, even if we're not necessarily, at least in my opinion, it's the meat of what cyberpunk is about. But if you want to count Akudama Drive on that standard, if you want to test against that, it hits it square on the head. It's bright, it's colourful, it's neon. You have little touches like how the crosswalks are, the crossings are have the holographs. In fact, holographic imagery in general is a big part of this. Very Blade Runner. So that works, but it's not dour like Blade Runner is. It's very bright and vibrant and neon, which is fine in its own right. It works depending on the setting. But even the opening is a haze of orange, piss yellow smog basically.
The big advertisement with the Asian lady on it that's talking about I don't know, their bath gel or something. I was like, this is the big visual send up to Blade Runner right here.
Yeah, blimps with advertising on. In all things that this reminded me of, it was the original Syndicate video game from 1994. Because you had blimps in there that had advertising on there, and of course, Total Recall. Off-world colonies. We all remember that.
Yeah, because we've all seen it. We definitely have all seen Total Recall in this podcast, on this video chat. Absolutely haven't missed that movie.
You were talking about how Danganronpa was about accusing other people, and I'm accusing you of being a goddamn fucking liar.
I haven't seen it.
Although, that being said, you've not committed the worst sin of saying, well, I have seen the Colin Farrell Total Recall, but not the original.
Sweet Lord. No, I knew to stay away.
Yeah, good on you for that. So it handles the aesthetic well, and then we get down to the nitty-gritty world-building details, which is, look at how many people are being incarcerated for the most minor of bullshit offences. Okay, look, I'll be honest, I've talked before about how I feel about the police on this podcast, but we're certainly... Well, actually, no, I'm not going to say it because I'm sure someone could cite an example. But, she literally just was accused of not paying because she had to give money back and just kind of got forced. It seems a bit extreme, that, to be quite honest. Especially since
she had money. She had like digital credits. She just didn't have cash. The whole thing was like she got surprised that it was a cash-only takoyaki stand in the far future.
Yeah. I'd be wary, though, I'm conscious, obviously, with everything that's going on in the world right now, that I probably shouldn't say that would never happen here, because I'm sure someone could cite examples. But I think the distinction here to make, though, is what the show chooses to present to us as the norm.
Right.
And make no mistake when I say that, though, like, stuff like that happening, period, regardless of its frequency, is wrong, and it shouldn't be happening. And Lord, I was trying to say that Akudama Drive didn't have politics, but Jesus Christ, I'm getting into it now, and we're going down the well here.
Catherine brings up a good point, though, in chat. She says that she did have cash, and yes, that's the incredibly frustrating bit, and one that I'm sure the show is going to point back to when it tries to sort of have us believe that Swindler is. That there's more to this than meets the eye, that she could have easily gotten out of that situation, but she wanted to go to jail. It sure seems like it, but actually, I mean, to be fair, I mean, as silly as it is, like, that she didn't pay, like, I sort of understand symbolically, she's like, no, like, this guy, this hottie on a motorbike, who dropped the money. I want to see him again, so I want to have this money to get back to him. I don't want to let go of my connection with him just yet. I'm not ready to do that. So I do understand why she did that, and I think it's silly. But I get it. I think the unreasonable party is definitely law enforcement in this case.
Well, the reason I'm bringing this up, though, is because a part, I think, of Cyberpunk being codified as it is that the law in that will punish you for the most minorest shit, and then particularly will label you. Mm-hmm. I think is also a key part of that. The thing that I'm reminded of, curiously enough, from what you said, is this is the most obscure shit I'll probably bring up on this podcast, but I read a comic when I was a kid called Shadows. It was actually part of the 2000 AD imprint, so Judge Dredd. And the story was essentially of this lady who inexplicably one day, her digital ID that was coded into her wrist or something like that was not found, and she was exiled from the city to the lower levels. And it was completely arbitrary how this happened, at least as I remember it. So I think that's a part of this as well, like how on a dime she can literally be labeled as an Akudama, and that's the end of her life as she knows it. I mean, to go back to Cyberpunk again, you have what are called SINs, which are chips implanted in every person to give them an identity. If you don't have a SIN, you can't work in like an office job, you can't like access a lot of public services. But Shadowrunners in this world of Shadowrun, they go without SINs, so they can't be tracked. So there's often like a lot of government espionage and surveillance element of it as well. The other things that I'll mention as well is we have the public execution, just after the children's block.
Yeah.
Right. Cutthroat. Yeah, and it's all
state-run media,
by the way. In a stadium, no less, with a classic guillotine.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal, and that's advertised like everywhere. So state execution, big part of it as well. Like, and there's no hiding it. It's actually made a sport or a form of entertainment. And then the final thing I'll mention as well, which is something that I think is really neat, is on occasion, Cyberpunk will dabble in this, but most of the time it tends to not, as I understand it, which is there's actually a reference to a mythology here, which is used as a means of populace control. And it's only a small detail again in this, and it's not even a mythology that's like it's something we know of. But bear in mind, the ghost bullet train that they use to ship supplies back and forth, like they believe it's like a spiritual thing. There is a scene in the first episode of people praying to it as it goes past.
Yeah. And
obviously, if they think it's not to be fucked with, then they won't touch it or they won't ask questions about it. It's a way of keeping them docile. It's quite a neat dystopic element, and it's religion based rather than something else, which is not something you'll often see in Cyberpunk, as I understand it. So that's a neat detail of itself, but it still fits with the Cyberpunk theme, in my opinion. Oh, and there's one final thing which I wanted to bring up as a separate talking point, but I'll blend it in, which is let's talk about propaganda videos.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about the stick figure stuff. You remember the shark?
Oh, yeah. The shark and the bunny.
Yeah, the shark and the bunny. So the first one we see of this is you often have a case like with stories like this where you have to get a lot of exposition dumped in. And I think this is probably really one of the most well-done examples I can think of because it serves a number of purposes.
It's really good.
Which, first of which, it has a diegetic reason for existing because it's meant to explain to people living in that world. It's not like, I mean, okay, like I go back to B&A and we had the PowerPoint that came out of fucking nowhere, which content-wise I get, but it shouldn't have been available literally on a dime for Mitru to watch, like, you know, in the office of the mayor. It should have been something shown on TV. Like, hey, are you new to Anima City? This is the New to Anima City TV channel. Here's our presentation on everything you need to know. Makes sense, you know? You wouldn't have the mayor handing out, like, you know, tourist attraction leaflets in Manchester, for example. Doesn't make sense. But this works for me. But on top of that, I love how it's stylized. It's very cartoonish, and it's used to diminish the horror of what's being discussed. The first of which is that we have two regions, Kansai and Kanto, and it's Kanto that's the... No, it's Kansai, sorry. I'm getting the two mixed up. Which is the one that's not shit? In the world of academia.
Kanto, I think.
In the world... Yeah, so Kanto is the good... correct us in chat by if I'm wrong here, but Kanto's the good place. No, it's Kansai. Sorry, I remember now. It is Kansai is the good place.
No, I think Kansai is the one that was destroyed and rebuilt back up with help from Kanto. And it's the bad one. Because they're in Kansai right now, I believe. And, like, yeah, that's... I'm almost positive that's the case.
It's hair splitting out because the point I'm getting across here is that the party that bombed the other region is the one producing these propaganda videos of this little like bunny and shark watching. Oh, they dropped a brand new bomb and nukes the place into the ground. But then that region became grateful to the other for sending help and all that.
Right.
And yet the very same video is produced by the region giving that help who also bombed them into oblivion, which is just insane if you map it out like that.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's like, hey, you know, everyone's grateful to us. Like, we nuked them so they could get better. I'm like, what the fuck? And this is framed like children's programming, which is all the more insane. It's like having Big Bird saying that it was great that the Enola Gay dropped the two bombs on, you know, Japan. What the fuck? It's madness. But it works. It reminded me of all things of Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop, not the more recent one again. Because that similarly had its own, like, you know, commercial breaks where they had things like newsreaders going, and today in the Pakistani city of etc., a late space laser regressively discharged and fired into the town, killing thousands of people. And they're reading off like they're reading off the weather. I'm misquoting some of that because I can't remember the exact city and such, but it reminded me of that kind of satirical element. So there's a lot of nice information got across in this. It makes sense for these, like, bunny and shark things to exist in this universe to explain stuff, because not only do they tell us the state of the world, but they're also propaganda from the state, which I think is really, really neat. Yeah. So they've done a lot of good stuff with that. Oh, and I have one other thing.
Okay,
go on. No, you were going to say something about...
Oh, yeah, just that, again, to draw the sort of obvious comparison with Danganronpa, they are these animal mascot characters that give exposition, as you say, and are stick figures. And Monokuma plays a larger role in the Danganronpa story than so far the bunny and shark have done so far. But in between segments, there is a bit called Monokuma Theater where a flat version of Monokuma comes up on stage and tells a story that it's really difficult to see at the time how it's related to the case that's happening, but if you look at it later, you can kind of suss that out a little bit. So, yeah, a little sort of theatrical exposition with animal mascot character. Again, not unusual for this writer.
It definitely works so.
Yeah.
The final thing I'm going to mention as well is also how the show kind of blends its art style into this idea of, like, you know, the anarchic element of the Akudama versus the executors. Because, of course, we have the introduction vignettes for each Akudama and then their title cards with, like, their, you know, sentences. And these are presented very punky, very, like, you know, that kind of style. Then we get the executors, and it's all formal, traditionalized Japanese art style.
It looks so cool. I loved
Yeah,
it.
it looks cool, but again, the
Very
show is
different.
consistent with its art style, as in like these guys are chaos, these guys are order. This
Yeah.
is the formal, recognized, like, proper art style versus, the stuff that exists on the streets.
Does it make me a bad
Even
person that I kind of like the cops in the show? Those two a lot. They're fucking badasses. Like
they are badasses, yeah.
that's what I mean. Like and there's something endearing about the junior partner of the two, but like it's once they show up and the martial arts fighting begins, that's when I really scooted a little closer in my chair. I was like, oh yeah, here we fucking go, baby.
Yeah, that was a bloody brilliant fight scene, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
It was kinetic, it was frantic. I like the change in scenery when they did the different lights for like the fish and stuff. That was so
Oh,
cool.
amazing.
But yeah, I think that Miyoto Shirogane did a great job fighting against Brawler. He knew that would get that reaction. I knew that would get that reaction, and I'm glad it did.
FOH.
So that's my first talking part of the way, which is that I do believe that Akudama does a good job of cyberpunk. It isn't a deep cyberpunk story, though, don't get me wrong, but it clearly is aligned against government authority, which works.
I guess.
Not necessarily.
Like, I mean, it is, but like, you laid out a good case for it. I guess. So, are the Akudama, is the very existence of Akudama, I mean, like, is it part of the way things are supposed to function? Is it something that has a sort of institution that has risen up kind of counter to the authority? Like, it seems like them getting paid and doing jobs is very normal. Like, it seems like anyone can just contact them.
They're shadow runners, basically.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Right.
The way I would describe it, though, is I think that my speculation is that Akudama is a title given to them, like, to label them as criminals that they have then taken to own. Like when groups get given the label that they
Sure.
are meant to be slurs, but then they make their own. That
Right.
kind of thing.
That's
I
interesting.
don't think Akudama is like a thing that you are made into, but rather it's something that you're labeled as by the state.
Yeah. So that's and kind of Catherine brings up in chat like that. There's really little difference between seemingly the Akudama and the executors, both in terms of their sort of brutality, fighting prowess, their callousness at times, kind of how they're only kind of focused on the job more so than anything else. And so, yeah, it does seem like they are really functionally the same, but they are just Akudama that work for the state instead of independently. That they're just kind of the same thing.
Maybe that could be the backstory for the head guy, the one with the thingy,
Yeah.
what's it? That he was an Akudama who then was like, okay, we've caught you. You've got two choices: public
Right.
execution, or how about you, bear the devil you know, kind of thing.
Sure, I could see it.
Yep. All right, that's my talking point done about Cyberpunk. Over to you, Doc.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna before I start another thing. So I will. Here's the key element of Cyberpunk that I think is missing. I mean, the anti-capitalist, anti-corporate government stuff, anti-cop stuff is certainly the anti-cop stuff. Is there some of it, not as much as you'd like it to be, but it's there. I think that there's a key element though. And tell me if I'm wrong about this being a key element in Cyberpunk, but it's missing to me is that like exploration of the human condition in a future where like what it means to be human has been expanded somehow. So there's none of like the Ghost in the Shell. Not that every Cyberpunk has to be as Ghost in the Shell, right? It doesn't have to be a Ghost in the Shell, but like it's just a good example of like a Cyberpunk story that explores like well, like in the future, what we think of as human is going to be like way different because our brains will be cyber brains. Like, does that mean we're still human? Yes, no. The arguments kind of go get. So this is not a show about arguments, and maybe that's why that element is not there. But like to me, that seems like such a core idea, even in like recent shows of anime that have purported to be cyberpunk, like Psychopaths. You still have that question of like, you know, human freedom and like what does it mean to be human with this new technology, like sort of seeming to you know, sometimes technology seems to like take on the traits of humanity, but is it human? Like just all those fundamental questions. And maybe that's not cyberpunk. Like maybe I'm getting that wrong. Like maybe that's because there's stories that are not cyberpunky, like you know, there's Asimov and things like that, more general science fiction that goes into that too. So
well, to answer your question there, going back again to William Gibson's Neuromancer, which is arguably the foundational text of cyberpunk, like it's what started it basically. That wasn't a part of it from my memory, but I should say, me saying that it's not a part of it doesn't mean it's an invalid addition when you bring it in. I think to go back to my definition, what I said before, what I was trying to get across was that people seem to, like when people say they've got a cyberpunk story, they are all about how it looks.
Yeah.
That is entirely it. Whereas the root of what made cyberpunk like a worthwhile literary movement was because of those elements of anti-government and anti-capitalist critique.
Right.
But that element is not mutually exclusive, of course, from examining the human condition. And I should stress that my favorite cyberpunk stories would be those that can do both.
And
but I'll go back to what I've said as well, which is that I think, again, with Akudama Drive, it's not wanting to necessarily touch on that too much at the moment. But that's fine because it doesn't purport to.
No, yeah,
if it were,
for sure.
If it were trying to pretend to be a cyberpunk story without at least a dash of the stuff of like, you know, anti-corporate, like the religious thing, like I probably wouldn't. Because also again, it's not purporting to be too deep about anything. I probably wouldn't mind so much. But the issue you run into here is you then start to get into like stories where they'll pretend to be cyberpunk and they'll have the aesthetic like dialed in pretty well, but they won't have anything to say about like, you know, the systems that govern the world beyond strictly the human look that you talked about, where it's about one person's place in the world and not the systems that ultimately destroy. Like that's what I've said before about other shows that we've covered, where it will say, you know, racism bad, and it'll say it's because of one bad actor,
right?
Not the system that causes it.
Yeah. That's totally fair. I mean, that's a good answer. And I need to read Neuromancer because it's one of those books that I've started to read actually, but I've not.
You know what? You know what's insane about Neuromancer? Hold that thought.
Holding the thought. The Kakashi lookalike, says Catherine in chat, referencing the senior partner executor, and how dare you? So I'll say to that. Shadon is putting his headphones on. Here he is.
I knew it was going to be on my bookshelf somewhere. So here you are. So here's the thing about Neuromancer. Neuromancer has the most obsolete opening line in all of.
Oh, but it's so good though. I love that opening.
It is, and I'm going to read it for you right from here, which goes: "The sky above the port was the color of television tuned to a dead channel." Sorry, Bill Gibson. Dead channels don't exist anymore. Well, that's one of the things that happens when you make speculative science fiction, that you can, like, writers often think about the grand changes, but don't think like, hey, maybe dead television channels won't exist anymore. But it's still a great image for those who know about it. But if you're a millennial, like if you're under the age of like 18 or whatever, you read Neuromancer, it's like, what the fuck's that?
Well, look,
I don't know what this is.
This show has that too. They all the phones are just iPod classics.
Oh no!
They're just like iPod classics that were dipped in Tron. That's all they are.
That's an amazing way to describe that. Dipped in Tron.
They were dipped in Tron.
Just fell in the fat of it, honestly.
Yeah, and now they're fancy phones. I like them, but they just look like iPods. The little wheel, the clicky wheel. Okay, so what is my actual first talking point? I guess like I will. We touched on a whole bunch of them. I mean, we've been talking for 2 hours, so
I expected for this show, to be honest, but I'm glad for it.
I know, me too. I think so. I'll just mention some more of the cinematic similarities to Danganronpa as opposed to the kind of the plot ones and the setup ones, because those we kind of talked about. But I think anyone who has played the games again will see that those shots, Shadon, where it has the transition and the walls pop up and then the furniture plops down.
Those are so cool. I think they're
great. Amazing. And those happen every time you go into a new room in Danganronpa. If you go into a classroom, you just see it's just like the desks all drop and the walls pop up. And then if there's any people in the room, all the characters are like cardboard cutouts. They're not three-dimensional. They retain their flatness, so they kind of pop up in the room and wave around. And you can go around them and see that they're just flat. They're just like stickers. But yeah, so that is really cool. The visual kind of design, not just the character designs, but like the little like, it will say like, here is Kansai, right, in the bottom right, and it's really lit up nice. And those games I've always had kind of a flair for really, really clean UI and presentation of information. And this doesn't go for the same kind of minimal look, but the structural similarities, I think, are there to be seen. And then there's just one scene, which is just, I mean, I feel like it's the guy, it's Kaiho going, "Hey everyone, I'm the Danganronpa man," because
can I just interrupt you there and just say now that you've said that, I feel like we should be on the lookout for a Monokuma like cameo in the background somewhere. I feel like it's gonna happen. We watched BNA and there was Inferno Cop. It's not impossible.
Yeah, well look. If you Google,
I'm not googling shit.
Or you watch like a Let's Play of the Danganronpa, the first case, or any case. Do you remember the scene in, I guess it's the first episode, when they're introducing Cutthroat, and he starts cutting off mannequins' heads, gray and black mannequin. Those fucking mannequins, down to the most minute detail, are the killers in Danganronpa when they're showing a visual depiction of the crime when you haven't guessed who the killer is yet. They just are them. And there's at the end of every case you do, they make you put together a manga of the killing. And they have a bunch of pictures all scrambled up and you have to put them in order. And in those pictures, the killer is always one of those fucking mannequins. And then at the end, it slowly fades into the person that you've accused, the guilty party, whoever that may be. But yeah, I was just like, holy cow. That and the transitions, the intro sequences, all that stuff really echoed the games in the best way. And I'm pointing out a lot of similarities, mainly to try to sell people on playing Danganronpa if they enjoyed this, because not to be like, I'm so smart pointing out these deep changes that no one has noticed. Like, if you played the games, like, these will all be pretty obvious, but like, it just, like, if you enjoyed this show, like, the games will probably be something that you're comfy with. They're really, really great games, and this, you could feel the author's presence in this in a way that the reverse will absolutely be true. You'll feel Akudama's presence in Danganronpa, absolutely.
I still want to check out the Danganronpa games someday. I will eventually get to them, but they're on the list, quote unquote.
They're on PC and PS4, so
maybe I'll be something to stream actually once I've exhausted the Final Fantasy well, quite possibly. Okay, so I only have one more talking point because everything else I want to discuss has been covered, and I want to talk about how you build a heist story.
Okay.
So, episode 3 is named Mission Impossible, and it's actually instructive for us to talk about that episode and refer to Mission Impossible as a template. By the way, I want to note I was originally quite annoyed at the show for having Reservoir Dogs as episode two's name, and I'll tell you why.
Toast.
Toast. Toast. Yeah, exactly. I was quite annoyed at that because I thought stuff like that's just going to invite comparison if your show turns out to be bad, or even if it's good. Like, be careful when you make references to stuff like that because you just invite, people say, well, why am I not watching this instead? And I'll be fair and say that the Reservoir Dogs thing felt tangential, like I'm naming a film that's like kind of adjacent, rather than what Reservoir Dogs was really about. There was a bit of non-linear editing in, I think it was episode 2, where we start at the beginning and then pan back. Sorry, start at the end and then follow through. But it's not the same to the same degree as in Tarantino's film, of course, which is also arguably one of the most interesting things about it. But anyway, point being, Mission Impossible, right? There is, of course, the infamous vault break scene, which we just referred to with the toast joke.
Yes.
And there are two ways that you generally build a heist story. And this is true of this show as well, which is one, you have the entire plan explained in advance. You have the meeting, everyone gathers around. Here's what we're going to do, step by step, scenario by scenario. The plan is flawless. And you might see where I'm going with this when I make those air quotes. The other is that you do it as the plan progresses. So,
which is, I think how they did it in Baby Driver. I feel like have you seen that movie? I think that's how they did it. I have,
but it's been a while. But yeah, the Mission Impossible actually does that as well because they mention certain details of the heist as they go, and then we can also mention things like Ocean's 11 and stuff like that as well. But you have like where the heist is in progress, and then they explain things as they go along, like almost like when a magician reveals their tricks, like how he do that. Well, we'll have a moment where the characters will maybe flash back to the meeting scene that I mentioned before. Like, so okay, what happens if this guy comes up here? Well, you're going to talk to somebody else, and that's after they've done it. So there's two ways you do that. Why do you do this when writing a heist story? It's because you need to maintain a sense of tension. Now, if you write a heist story where the entire plan is laid out before, I guarantee you, unless the film, show, book, whatever, is dog shit, that it will go wrong. Because there's nothing more boring than a perfectly executed heist where you know all the details. Oh my
god, why? And they do that here really well. Like, they do both, in a way.
Well, that's what I was going to get to, yes.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I'm glad you said it. But they do both. And then, of course, the alternative is that we don't know the plan, the audience. So we, of course, get glean details as we go along. And then it's very satisfying because, again, it feels like a magician's trick, which you get explained about. That's part of the joy sometimes about watching magic tricks when you learn how it's done. So this show, to its credit, does both. We get a very extensive, very exhaustive meeting scene in which the heist is laid out. But then things go awry in places. How do we get through the barriers, for example? Which results in, of course, Brawler doing what he does best.
Oh my god.
Where he starts ripping up all the barriers.
Incredible.
And then, of course, we have the knife throwing, which is great. These are good things. And then we have the parts of the plan that are explained in advance and go perfectly fine. We have things like this egg device that Hoodlum pulls out.
Egg device.
That's only explained at that time.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the catch with the power going out, which Hacker says, "Hey, I didn't adjust the weight on this, and I had one too many donuts today, so I'm sorry, but you're up, swindler." But that's it. That's the thing. Like, you can do both, and I think it's this show's credit. It does choose to do both.
Yeah.
Because we get to see how things go wrong, but then you also get the satisfaction of seeing the magician's trick unveiled as the heist progresses. So, yeah, absolute credit to the construction here. Again, this is not anything deep. It's not anything super meaningful or even all that meaningful. Period. But the thing I want to stress, and I want you all to take away from this, and this is what we've said about like approaching the show differently, is I won't talk about like deeper meaning yet because there isn't a lot of that here really, but I hope that I've at least got across how well crafted this show has been thus far. It's hit all the right notes for me.
I mean, the group dynamics are very intentionally constructed. It's not haphazard. It does feel like the author is, like in our Discord, right? In our patron questions brought up a traitor. It feels really, really easy to think, okay, there's going to be one. and the author might be jingling some keys over here to make us think it's Hoodlum. And
Old
get
red
us
herring
distracted.
on the menu.
What?
Be the old red herring on the
Yeah,
menu.
exactly, right? Totally. And yeah, and the whole thing about an ordinary person and being called an ordinary person, is that like a double bluff? Like, we're thinking about it because the show and the author and other media has shown that like it's capable of delivering on that. Like, it's not, we're not wasting our time speculating. Like, clearly moves are going to happen. There's going to be twists, there are going to be turns, and it's laying the groundwork. It's seeding future events and future surprises. I think in an interesting way, and I agree. Yeah, like it's very. It feels weird to say it about a show that's just the content is about a whole bunch of fucking chaos, but the construction is deliberate. It's a deliberately constructed kind of chaos, right? Yeah. And it's a lot of fun. It's so much fun. I want to read a couple quotes. Here's some of my favorite quotes we've gotten so far. We did the "You're Not Dead" thing. That was incredible. A quote from Courier in episode 1. "Women or children, I will kill all the shits in my way." I'm sorry, Courier's top tier now. We have to redo our tier list. "Women or children, I will kill all the shits in my way." Ridiculous.
Wow, can I just interrupt and say, like, I didn't realize "women or children" first was going to be used to kill people, not to save them.
What the hell?
God damn, mate.
And then I loved that at the final part of episode 3, when Swindler is, covering for Hacker and she's in the train and trying to open the door, she then adopts the potty mouth of the edgelord and she says, "Move, you shit," and gives one final push to the handle. That was very charming. There's a part there's a part where when the executor, the senior one, Kakashi, as Catherine would call him, has Courier by the throat, and he says, "Die for your sins." It's just so over the top, man. I love it. And then of course Courier smacks the gun so that the executor shoots his partner in the fucking shoulder. Incredible. So this leads me to my actual rank. You have to give me at least your top 3, if not top 5, most bonkers moments in these 3 episodes.
The one that springs to mind immediately for top 1 is Brawler leaping into the bus, and we just cut to a picture of his face popping through the glass. He's just,
oh my god, that didn't even make my list. But it's incredible. That's a great moment.
It is a great moment.
My number 1 would involve the Bat Cycle, specifically the grappling hook when they are saving Cutthroat.
Oh my god, yes!
And he grabs onto the anchor of the monitors and spins around.
It's such bullshit, but it's great.
It's so ridiculous. I mean, we get the contract with the audience has been set up earlier when he drives up a building in the thing, delivering his case to the 2 rival gangs or whatever he's doing. But God, that fucking twirling around the chandelier of monitors was that killed me, man. That absolutely slayed me.
That was absolutely up there. I've not given too much thought about ranking these.
When the doctor returns to life, absolutely has to make.
Yeah, number list. 2. That's up there. I'll give that number 2.
I self-medicate. Like, what?
It's fine. It's a flesh wound.
It's fine. The executor shooting his partner in the shoulder, pretty incredible sequence. Brawler, as you say, smashing his face through the bus. Also, Brawler lifting up the stone pillars. What the fuck, dude? That was some incredibly ridiculous shit. Just, you know what? They haven't put any barriers here. Where? The foundation of Just starts throwing the
Tear the old
pillars.
place up. What? Why not? Why not? Indeed. God, what made my number three? Blah, 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 blah. God, my brain's going blank now. That's the problem. Like, I should be able to remember these moments offhand. I'm gonna give it to the knife thing for the barriers because I felt that was just stupid enough that it was great. Like, I'm just keep throwing knives through these barriers and they'll keep knocking them through one by one. It's just like, oh, he says something like, I've thrown them all, but I really wish that he just said something really childish like, I'm out of knife. I'm out of
Knife.
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 I've got no knife.
It was, to me, this is less funny, but still insane. That, and I guess it makes more sense given the context of episodes 2 and 3. But when you're in the first episode and you're the police chief, right? And someone comes in and says, okay, we have criminals breaking in and they're trying to rescue this other prisoner who's about to be executed.
You mean Police Chief Commissioner Gordon in his new role?
I don't know. No, I'm not a fan. I feel like the appropriate response would be, well, put him underground, take him back to prison, whatever. Not, well, they can't get one up on me. We're just going to kill him now. Kill him faster. They'll never outwit me. Like, what? Like, that just seems so bizarre to me that the response is, well, hurry up. Let's go ahead and kill him. Like,
People want a performance. We can't put on the Antiques Roadshow in case this gets cancelled. The fuck do you think we are?
What, just bizarre, man. What a show.
The one final scene I'll mention is when we get Corey's introduction, when there's a gang war happening in the subway, and he just drops in from above and in the middle of it, everyone stops and goes, "Here's your package, sir," and just drives off. I thought that was great because I thought stuff like, I really wish that I had delivery like that's dedication. That is just like, yeah, here you go, sir. Like in the middle of a gang war, and then no one blinks.
I know. My the bottom of my list would probably be when when you find out that ordinary person swindler has to go into the coffin. Like, when the hacker is like, it's fucked up. The power. I didn't get to change all the data. It's not gonna. And I'm like, oh no. It's like, I got to reprogram everything, but the wait. No, she's gonna have to do it. I was just like, oh no, that was wild. I really liked that moment. That was a fun twist because, like you said, things were going wrong, and it made it really interesting to see it through.
Yeah, I like. Oh, there's so many good moments in this. It was just great. All right, I'm done with talking points. Sarah, do you have any more you want to add, Doc?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right. Well, we'll wrap up then. So it's time to rate these episodes. And I'm actually going to go first here because I want to explain something before I give my rating, which is my rating is going to seem harsh. But you bear in mind, when I've graded shows previously, I've graded them on the curve of like a 5 is a really deep and meaningful, thought-provoking piece of work that gives me a lot to chew on to, and is great to watch with great. You get the point. It's not perfect, but there's a lot to get into. There isn't a lot to get into in Akudama Drive, but there is a hell of a lot to like about it. That's the way I would describe it. So take it from me when I give this rating that it is only because it is against the exquisite company that is in the higher regions of my scoring grade that I use. This kind of informal bullshit that I pretend is a actual academic, like rigorous scoring system that's means tested and shit like that. So in the end, I am very positive on Akudama Drive, but it is merely just a popcorn show. And for that reason, I will ultimately give it 3.75 out of 5 Miss Takoyakis.
That's not as bad as I thought. That's not terrible.
No, it was good, but the thing is, like, a show like this, I think will probably never break a 4 for me unless it does start delving into the character stuff you mentioned. Just because that's what for me pushes shows to the next level.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But this show thus far has succeeded everything it has set out to do. And so if I were to rate it on those merits, I'd probably give it a 4.5 or a 4.75. But that's not the grade I'm using here. So again, all things being relative, take more stock in what I told you prior to this point than relying on them. I mean, scores are bullshit, really. They're just more for fun. But you know what I mean. Take what I've said up until this point as why you should watch the show, rather than me saying, well, it's just, it's like a 80 out of 100 on Metacritic, some shit like that.
Yeah, my system in my head is a kind of a mixture of both. Like I definitely weigh, does the show succeed at what it sets out to do? I weigh that pretty heavily. My own enjoyment factor, the oh fuck meter, how many times you say that and get up off the couch. And then also, like, there are things that, I think, if a show sets out to be schlock and it's schlock, like, this is my scale. So there are things that I prefer, just inherently prefer, that I think are more valuable than other things. And so, like, I don't know if the Soda Can Girl show laid out its contract and then was like, succeeded at what it set out to do, and what it set out to do is clear an incredibly low bar, I'm not going to rate it very highly because I'm just not into that. So, but
oh, why did you do that?
But having broken Shadon made him sad. Saying all that, like, I'm going to give it 4.25 because I think it's very good. It's a lot of fun. I think that there's so much potential. I can't wait to see what happens next. It's got me very excited. It's such a breeze to watch. It's so fun. I kind of enjoy that we are having to take a different tack when kind of getting into and exploring the show and figuring out what to talk about, rather than not motivations or really big themes too much. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I'll add one final thing, by the way, isn't that this, if there's one thing I want to give, if when you have award shows where or when you give out scores and you give out additional awards, if I were to do that, I'm going to give this the really strong opening episode award, because episode 1 did everything it needed to get you into the show. Here's our characters, here's what they do, here's some fun action scenes involving what they do, here's them meeting and fighting each other, here's them then coming to an agreement to work together because of this mystery that's going on, here's our audience proxy. It does everything. Bam, 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 bam. It's efficient, it's well done, it's exciting. It's probably one of the strongest opening episodes I've seen based on what it's trying to accomplish. So good on it for doing that just in the first episode as well.
Totally. Now that I think about it, I don't know, it's sort of like a flipped Tiger and Bunny opening episode in some ways. I don't know. I'll have to think about that some more. I really dug it. I totally think I recommend and think people should watch it. I didn't say 4.25, 4.25, knives suspended in midair, molecularly frozen, out of 5.
No wonder he didn't hit the button. He was only 0.5 away.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
there
it.
You go.
We did it.
That's it. We did it. All right. Well, we'll wrap up there, ladies, gentlemen. So I just wanted to thank you all very much for joining us this evening for Akudama Drive episodes 1 for free. I hope you've gotten something out of it. I hope you found it entertaining. Again, if you do get the chance, if you are wanting to support us financially, feel free to check our Patreon at patreon.com/Warui Deshou. If you're catching us on free swear, though, I mean, times are tough. I understand that entirely. Every penny counts. And all I'll say to you in that case is that if you can, spare us the gift of your time. Drop us a like, drop us a subscribe on the social media channels. You know how this game is played. Hit those buttons. We would definitely appreciate any engagement we can get is helpful. I also just want to thank our patrons in general for their ongoing support throughout the year. It's been really, really good having you continue to put your money where our mouths are, trusting us to give you good content. I hope we've been doing that, and we're going to continue doing so. Now is a good time as anything to mention, of course, that next week we'll be covering the first 3 episodes of Suritama. And then the week after that, we'll be covering the first 3 episodes of Showa Genriko Rako Shinjo Season 2. Descending Stories, I believe it's called. Mm-hmm. Other things on the horizon. We are currently looking in bringing back After Hours in a new format that will allow us to record it individually. Because the current problem me and Doc face is that there's only so many times we can get together at the moment to record, usually Thursdays and Fridays. Mm-hmm. And that limits what we can do. And also, we can't even necessarily be together at the same time on a given day, for that matter, as well. So it complicates things a bit. So that's why some of our extra content has fallen by the wayside. But we have something in mind for After Hours that we will be mentioning to our patrons in Discord and on Patreon soon enough. So that's something to look forward to. We're also going to be discussing about getting Christmas Ghiblies this year.
Oh, yeah.
That's something we did last year, and I really enjoyed it. It's just going to be a question of, again, time. Partly because, again, of getting together, and also because of, I mentioned at the start of this podcast about my workload, and while it is easing off, it's going to be tricky for a while, such that fitting a lot of things in will be not easy, shall we say. But if I can be a part of doing Christmas Ghiblies again this year, I absolutely will be, because there's some of their films I definitely want to talk about. I'll also mention as well, without going into too much detail, that we are having a Halloween get-together next Saturday. That's going to be an 18-hour-long screening of various things, so do get along for that. And you can get on site if you're not a patron by just doing it for $2 a month. Even if you just pay this $2 entry fee and then leave after you're done, I'm totally cool with that. It's just an event I'm putting together because I know this year's been an absolute shower of shit, and I figured I'd at least try and put something together that people could enjoy. Because I know that Halloween is off the cards for a lot of us. I certainly won't be able to have anyone around here on Halloween Day. So if I could at least get something virtual to go into that, can involve me dressing up, decorating that shelving there with all sorts of crazy crap, why not? Why not? All right, we'll leave it there then. But thank you all again very much for joining us this evening. Doc, where can people find you on the greater worldwide web nonsense that everyone's talking about these days?
Well, if you haven't deleted Twitter from your phone at this point, you can tweet me at The Subtle Doctor and talk about whatever you want. Please at me. Discuss things with me. I enjoy it. Excuse me. I enjoy the interaction. Or, the Warui Deshou Twitter account.
Yep.
I respond. Shadon and I both respond to those comments there and YouTube comments. At The Subtle Doctor.
I can be found at Shadon1010 on Twitter. I'll also mention that I'm currently still doing an ongoing Let's Play of Final Fantasy VIII. I've just made it to the start of Disc 3.
The Ocho.
So, yeah, the Ocho, yeah. It's been quite interesting covering it so far. So the next episode of that will be airing tomorrow, around 8 o'clock British Standard Time. So do feel free to check that out.
Part 11, I want to say.
It is part 11 because part 10 was episode 10, Floofy, where I named Squall's Ring Floofy.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's going to come up later as well. But that's discussion for the stream, of course. So do feel free to check that out. Otherwise, wherever you may be in the world right now, whatever time it may be, I hope that you're doing well. I hope you're safe and healthy. And the same goes for you and your loved ones, your family members. It's a shit time. I won't pretend it isn't. I'm not going to tell you lies. But all I can ask is that things can at least be as best they can be, given how otherwise rough things are for everyone. And I hope that's equally true for you listening at home, be it you're doing it on VOD or if you're catching it later. It will get better in the end. That's my belief anyway. But for now, we're going to keep on making content, cracking silly jokes and chatting shit. So we'll hopefully catch you here next week for Storytimer if you're one of our patrons. If not, keep an eye out for our free content. That'll be coming up soon. And as always, everyone, embrace each other to the ends of the universe. Good night.
Bring back the brothers.
Sorry.